well, and you?
Good, thanks. Hello, Miss Gonza, how are you?
I'm gonna stop my video so that we save on bandwidth.
Yeah, preferably your video can be on when you're presenting.
Yeah.
Miss Gonza, can you hear?
Island, where?
I'm not sure if she can hear us. Miss Landiwe Mkonza? She says she can't hear us.
She must just double check volume on a mic, and also on the, maybe send a message, a private message.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. No, welcome. Thank you very much. We'll start shortly.
Okay.
Just waiting for Dr. Rawls because he's in session 1.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we have 6 minutes to 2 o'clock.
Okay, it's good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
When we discovered my processing and shifted. This was pre-grounding. This was pre-grounding. Somewhere else in Africa, Kingdom of Kush, innovation and invention happened. Just not 10 days. Okay, I'm gonna go there. Okay. Recently in our lifetime. First century innovation. Personality. operating system. Ubuntu. Ubuntu operation system.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We officially welcome you to the PBICT workshop that we'll be covering today. We have been running a series of workshops over the past couple of days as our response to COVID-19 and creating awareness about the ICT sector. For those of you who don't know, PBICT stands for the Progressive Blacks in ICT. Basically, we lobby for access and ownership for SMMEs into mainstream ICT economy. We also create numerous awareness campaigns about our role, and we have a national membership of about 3,000 members that have joined. For those of you who would like to sign up as members, kindly go to the website www.pbict.org.za. It will direct you to an online form that you can fill in and sign membership. My name is Stephanie Lockman. I'm the National Chairperson of PBICT, and I'll be your program director today. Our topic for today's session will be response to rapid economic recovery and capacity building during COVID-19 and after. We are with 4 industry experts that will guide discussions and that will make presentations about their various roles and how they see what our economy will face in specifically relating to COVID-19, its effects, the ICT industry as a whole, our contributions. We therefore welcome them. There will be 4 sessions. I just want to go through the sessions and introduce the speakers. Before they proceed to speak, I will do a brief introduction of what they'll be covering. For purposes of the program today, we have 4 sessions. We welcome Dr. Leon Rolls, who is the PBICT president. We welcome Professor Chris Ardendorf in session 2. We welcome Ms. Lindiwe Mkonza for session 3. And then for the final session, we welcome Dr. Sibongiseni Tochedjani. She'll conclude the entire program with her final session. As I mentioned, before they speak, I will do a brief introduction again for the sake of the people who have joined afterwards, and then the speaker will then proceed. I just want to mention a few house rules. You can put off your video just to save on our bandwidth usage. Your questions and comments can be sent via the chat if you are in the Zoom group, or it can be posted on the Facebook page, as we will be muting all mics so that there's no disturbance to those who are listening. So without any further delay, we are going to welcome our first speaker, and we are welcoming our PBICT President, Dr. Leon Rose, who will be dealing with unraveling the PBICT commuters model as a tool for rapid economic recovery and ensuring a shared economic model for South Africa using Steamie. Dr. Rose, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Dr. Rose.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think that, may I, okay, just share my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Chair, if you can nod for me.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you very much and welcome to everyone, especially my brother there, Chris, and my sister Dabezita and Dr. Simply Subs. We know each other in other places as well, where we driving Rendani, especially on things of 4IR, the subject of 4IR. But today is more about Steamie and us as industry players and society representatives, then saying that how do we play in the space? And because we cannot wait for people to decide for us. I think that the time and the history where things have been decided and put upon us and we just followed chair, I think that time has ended. And we've realized now that the noise that we've been making all of these years for our entire careers in our various sectors and industries have now come to realization. And I'm hoping that a lot of eyes are opening to the future and are opening to the new thinking that we bring as the people that are in the sectors, especially the people what are always called the underdogs. But thank you very much, Chairperson, and welcome to everyone. And thank you to all of you that are joining and to all those that will even be listening and watching this video post this presentation. My job is a very simple one, Chairperson and fellow colleagues. Mine is to set a tone for today and introduce very simple models, isms. Ne? Isms. We'll talk about that later, but we're looking at isms as the tools for ensuring rapid economic development. But the people that are here, the industry experts that are really here, that we're here to listen to, are my three esteemed colleagues that will be talking. And we will also, during this lockdown and moving forward, we will be having a lot of people with the same quality and with the same knowledge coming here to these platforms and sharing their experiences, sharing their knowledge, and also sharing with us their ideas and their ideologies, and therefore giving ideas on how we can grow South Africa and make it to go back to what it was during the gold days, being the leading country in this world. So, Chair, I want to talk about communityism. We know this, we grew up with this. Our grandmothers taught us this, their grandmothers, their forefathers taught them this. Some people have over time called it Ubuntu. But this model has been taken and it has become something that is not even written, I'm sure, in any book of economics or written in any history or anywhere in the libraries. So we want to bring this model back of communityism, where as people who are working together, where as people who are building a community, where as people we raise a child as a society, as a community, where we work with each other, where we are linked. Now, there are people that have adopted this model and they use it as well, and they have been very successful with it. So successful that they even own the majority of the land that we have using our models that we've created. So it's time for us to tap deep into our souls and go back to what we're really all about. We are all about the community. And as Africans and as people, ism is our thing. Now, what are these two things? We have to understand this here. Now, a community basically is a group of people, according to Nina Simon's the book, The Art of Relevance. that it's a group of people who share something in common, particularly when we must take this, who share something in common. Right now, we are all here spending our Sundays listening to this 4IR. We are a community because we have something in common. We want to grow this country, and we all here that are listening to this, we want to rapidly recover post COVID-19 and post anything else. So ism basically is then a practice or a system of philosophy or whatever ideology that you want, that or a movement, an artistic movement. It's a thing that you do. So if we are on lockdown now, and if then attending these webinars that we've all been attending, and some people have discovered things like Zoom and something like Skype as if they existed yesterday, they are part of that ism, the lockdown ismness. So everyone has been forced across the world to finally join an ism of the technology technocrats, Rendani. We are now going to be a community of technology inclined people. And let's hope that from now on, all of us will understand the impact of technology and how technology is relevant in our life. The only time I always say that you know something is there is when it is gone. And I hope that a lot of people take cognizance of that. Now, Chair, the first, I need to also talk about another ism, and this ism is called the PBICT ism. Now, you'll see that we relate very well with our colors, where black is representing our struggle and what we're fighting for. Green is obviously our land and the opportunities that exist there. And we also have gold that is showing prosperity in the future and growing the future. So our logo, if you have to unpack PBICTism, we have a vision that one day this country will be prosperous and the people, which are the majority of the people, will be the one that own majority of the economy, the land, and everything else with it. And in that way, we will prosper as a country. We believe in efficiency as IT people. Artificial intelligence is key, and just natural human intelligence. Sometimes, we forget that we have these things in our heads that are it's called a brain. It's actually used to think. And we like to have other people thinking for us. So really, we're encouraging such things. And as we're sitting at home, we are doing a lot of thinking. And finally, some of us are actually discovering our brains. And I'm hoping that there's a lot of models that have been developed. As PBICT, we've had such fantastic proposals from our SMMEs that are developing many systems and so forth. And that is a good thing. Totality, which is representing unity and the protecting our people, protecting our members, protecting the people that share our vision, that share our struggle and share everything else with it. So that is PBICT. Those of you that do not know what PBICT is, feel free to go to pbict.org.za. You'll read up all about us and feel free to join and be part of this movement. We like to say that we are far from being an organization, Chair. We are still a struggle right now because we have to struggle for everything. Because what we are fighting for is something that the minority of the people that have been privileged enough to be in a certain class of wealth do not want the majority of the people to be on top of the table and to share on the dinner. The table is big enough. South Africa is a very big country. It's a beautiful country. We need to share it. Now, Chair, another one that I want to talk about is Steamism. Now, Steamism, as you can see there, we've actually termed it as a complete ism. It's actually hashtag, as you can see there, Chairperson, 4IR Steamie. I will elaborate a little bit more what Steamie is, but hashtag is representative of the age and the generation that we live in today. The age of short codes, the age of short words, the age of getting things done fast, efficiently. We want to move on. Now, 4IR, if you look at that logo properly, Chairperson, you will see that in there we've actually got all the catalytic projects that my esteemed colleagues will be talking about. You can see that the building blocks of it and the only way to get into it is in there. And that is with your science, your technology, engineering, you name it. We need to look at communism, distributed economies, shared economies, decoupling economies. We need to look at alternate powers, drone technologies. If you spend time and you look through that, you will find the opportunities and you will find yourself. You'll find the skill that you can specialize in. You'll find the new business idea that you can come up with. But that is the whole of 4IR and PBICT being there in the center and pushing and driving Steamie. Like I said, that my colleagues are the ones that are going to be talking to us more in depth about what is this 4IR and what are the opportunities that are there and what needs to be done. So, Chair, I said that I will break down Steamie. Now, it's a very simple concept. We've got science that is looking at earth, space, social, your life, your physical, your formal. Formal being lawyer, law is a science. Business is a science. It's a formal science. So all of those things, we are saying that we need to zoom into those. We need to look at them, unpack them, and say that what has been there in the past, let us consider it as old. What is the new that we need to look at? Because if we do not do that, then your China, your America, your Germany, your Japan, and everyone else will do it, and we will continue being the consumers of their thoughts, their ideas, and their innovations. This is what we are saying, that this is what we need to look at. The guys that are in the space of technology, communication is key. We had a webinar last week that was very well attended. I think we've got more than 1,000 views now. We've had a follow-up sessions of master classes where we're bringing people on and say, build community-based networks. We cannot rely and depend on the telcos and only just 4 companies in this country to provide us with telecommunications solutions. And we think that the data prices will drop. No, it won't. So let us look at communication. Your construction, manufacturing. We need to start manufacturing our own technologies. Can you imagine, fellow colleagues, if COVID virus actually forced China to shut down? America, everyone. We would have been out of technology as we speak, and would have been stuck and would go back to the dark ages. It's time to wake up and that we start building our own technologies. My colleagues will be talking about all of those things. Transportation, energy, cybernetics, you name it. This is just a few of them. Engineering, South Africa, we were at one stage of time able to produce and do a lot of engineering. There's a lot of engineering that we do not know about, a lot of IP that we own in the engineering space, but we need to take advantage of it. But we need to build our children today to be engineers of the future. We need to make sure that the unemployed youth that is out there become engineers. Let us start engineering. Let us start building our own things as South Africa. Maths is looking at your algebra, calculus, your topologies, all of those things, your stats, probabilities. Let us start building algorithms that will enable us as a country to take informed decisions. These are things that are simple, that don't need much. These are the things we're looking at. But Chairperson, in the middle of it all is your art, is your innovation, your innovators, your inventors. And most importantly, the only people that can revive this economy is entrepreneurs. And when we look at entrepreneurs, we're looking at entrepreneurs right down to a voting district level. Every voting district needs to have entrepreneurs in the space of science, in the space of technology, in the space of engineering, in the space of maths. They need to be working on arts, generating local content, producing African arts, creating our own movies, our own Hollywood, our own Bollywood, our own Nollywood. We need to get to those stages. We need to have innovation hubs everywhere. And we need those entrepreneurs to be the ones that are driving this economy and taking South Africa to the next level and to the future, Chairperson. So with the opportunities that are there, again, I will not dwell much into it, but we've started developing a framework which is going to be work in progress, more like a periodic table of where are the opportunities and how can we leverage those. Now, during the lockdown, over the next few weeks, what we are going to be doing is calling people like Professor Chris to come here and tell us that in science on autonomous vehicles or atmosphere water harvesting, what are the opportunities? What can we do? How do we play a role in it? What part can we play in it? In advanced minerals, Lindy, what is it that we can do? What are the advanced minerals that are there? How do we produce these minerals? How do we talk about smart automated business models, Dr. Simply Subs? We as SMMEs, we cannot just rely on the Ubers and the Zooms and all of this and the teams that are coming from overseas. We need our own platforms. We need people to come and tell us about in your technologies, artificial intelligence. Bring people, must have master classes on artificial intelligence, on big data, cloud computing, cyber security, all of those things. Internet of Things must not just be a fancy word that we throw and that we don't even understand what it's all about. Let us unpack it. At home, you should be having your small mini lab where you are making and your own Internet of Things devices that do things. You should be converting your home. You should be calling your RDP house. You should be converting your farmhouse and making it into a smart house without having to wait for anyone. On engineering, 3D printing, space station, you name it. On maths, our algorithms, forecasting and trading, gaming, researching, all of those opportunities. We want, when we are welcoming Chairperson, anyone that wants to speak on any of these topics, and we will make the platform available, because this is what we should be doing. We want post this lockdown to release a population and an army of that is ready and geared up to actually take 4IR and lead it, and we start inventing, innovating, and actually making our own things. Now, the people that the partners, the people that are responsible for ensuring that this happens, government plays a big part, and government is playing a huge part. We've seen what they've done with Spectrum, and we've seen the way they're handling the COVID virus, and we must commend our government for this. They've taken up to the task, and they are doing an excellent job. Creating enabling environments for 4IR is what we are calling for government, and that we must make sure that these things are there. If you look at society, we are playing our part. That is why we're having these webinars. We are playing our part. We're calling on every community member. We're calling on every parent that is sitting at home. We're calling on everyone that is there, that get your children geared up. Let them attend these webinars. You attend these webinars yourself as an employee. Repurpose your skill, learn new 4IR skills, so that post-COVID-19 lockdown, we are a generation ready to tackle and rebuild this economy. Academia should be right now busy day in and day out and having millions of Zoom and team meetings and webinars where they are repurposing the entire education system. And we're building an education system that can take this country to the future. And we hope and are praying that they are actually working on such thing. Industry plays a key role in this. Our job is to make sure that we get the commercialization and the industrialization, as well as the manufacturing capabilities for all of these things. So, Chair, South Africa, if we have to look at this onion as one of our people that are in this ism, the so-called ism calls it an onion. Now, right in the center in the yellow here, South Africa, we have socio-economic inequalities. For 20 years, more than 20 years, we've been trying to address this. And for more than 100 years, they were being created deliberately by a system that was never beneficial to anyone that is the majority of this country. Now, that has led to a social divide. And that social divide is in terms of wealth, location, gender, youth, race, and knowledge. You can think this doesn't impact you. Your 6-year-old child that can work on a smartphone, a touch screen, and your 80-year-old grandmother that is not technologically inclined. That is what we are sitting with. These are the realities that we are sitting with today. When we look at the digital divide, there's people that are sitting and are connected now, and those are the people that belong to the have-not. We are sitting here, we're on Zoom, we're on Facebook, we are on YouTube, we've got uncapped data, uncontended ratios, and all of those beautiful things. We are in the areas of the haves, and we are benefiting. But there are people that are in the areas of the have-nots. Those people are there in the digital divide, and it's the one that is creating a further social divide and is creating a further socio-economic inequalities. And we are responsible for that. As long as you can connect with fiber, and yet when you go to a rural area to visit your grandmother or to visit your grandfather, and he or she does not have connectivity, and you're doing nothing about it, you are the cause of that. Now, your economic divide in South Africa, if you look at the difference between the wealthy people that have accumulated generational wealth, and you look at the rich people that we see popping champagne bottles and doing all of those things that are still not accustomed to having money, and they decide to waste it. There's a huge difference there. And yet there is still poor people. Today, we have people that can't even afford to buy food right now during the lockdown, and government is coming in to assist such people. That divide can no longer exist. All of these lead to a simple thing, and that is the quality of life, where we have some people living a quality of life that are in the state of your Spain and your European countries, all that lavish lifestyle, and you have people's life, quality of life that is almost next to nothing. We have people that are sleeping without beds, without blankets. But such things, we're saying that we should not be complaining about those things. It's time that we actually do something and we change this whole thing. We improve the quality of life. We close the economic divide. We close the digital divide. We close the social divide, and then the socio-economic inequalities will disappear. We will not make them disappear by us not doing nothing. We'll not make them disappear by us talking. We'll not disappear by us not doing anything. These are the things that we need to do. So what is it that we need to do? Here are the pillars that we are proposing. Technology 4.0, people 4.0, infrastructure 4.0, economy 4.0, governance 4.0, and industry 4.0. We are saying that all of those must be refined. All of those must be upgraded. It's time for them to change. They're obsolete. And let us use smart technologies. Let us use 4IR to drive them and repurpose them, but with one interest in mind, making sure that it's our people using a communitism model that are the leading force and otherwise are the primary beneficiaries of these things. I will be sharing this presentation, Chairperson, I don't mind. So what we are saying, there's some strategic innovations where we're saying that government, industry, society, and academia needs to develop SA's innovation hub. We need to use high focus, have high focus on research, better healthier lifestyle. How do we do it? What are the strategic interventions? We've put it in there. On smart digitally inclined human capability, 4IR skills, let's build them now. This opportunity takes you 21 days, Professor Chris, if I'm correct, if I may be speaking under correction here, to master any skills. We have these 21 days. What skill are we mastering in the 4IR? We need to redesign the skills ecosystem, harness the African talent, our culture and our history, promote local content production, and we need to bridge the digital divide. Your smart, integrated, connected socio-economic infrastructure. We need to build superhighways, smart high-speed, fully integrated transport system, self-sustainable smart cities, towns, and villages, build hyperscale data exchange centers for Africa. These are the recommendations that we're putting in, and this is how we fix things. A shared, sustainable, and inclusive community. We are saying that we must do those initiatives, introducing new tax incentives, adopt shared economy models, adopt new digital currencies. We need to change, and we need to change now. Smart governance, we need to revamp and change the entire governance structure from the constitution all the way down, Chairperson. And if we don't do that, our people are going to suffer. On the commercialization, we need to come up with new ways of how we can take advantage of the IP we have, of the raw materials we have. We need to commercialize those, and Ulindiwe will be covering all of those in great depth. She is the expert on this. I am not. I'm just the guy that is setting the tone. Now, just very quickly, Chairperson, and lastly, I want to encourage everyone to take time in their busy schedules and in your business, in what you do. This WASI Maps, thanks to the WASI Map team that has created this. This is South Africa. We have a beautiful country of more than 55 million people. I think it's estimated at 57 million now. This was in 2016. We have beautiful square kilometers of beautiful country, a beautiful country that is well endowed with resources and minerals and everything that is in there. We need to take advantage of such things. If you have to look at the people that voted and the people that gave the mandate to the ruling party, which is the ANC, they've given that mandate based on what we were supposed to do. And local government elections, we need to go back and say how much and what have we delivered. I think that the time for not delivering services and making promises is over. And simply because we all look for government that they must deliver. Government creates an enabling environment. We have lovely initiatives by government, but industry, community, society, academia, it's time for us to actually be the ones that stand up and we assist government in ensuring that such things are delivered for our people. And the people that we're delivering for is these people. We have a median age of 25 and above. This is the future. If the people now living here are unemployed and living the way that we are living, imagine what's going to happen, Chairperson, to this generation, to this population. We need to make sure that that is done. We are communicating right now, unfortunately, Chairperson, in English, which is only 8%, but we need to start building language. These are opportunities for everyone that is here today. We need to start to convert and to converse in engineering, in science, and in every way in these languages. There's a lot of work that can be done here. If we look in terms of the South households, I will already know one survey that we're sitting at about 20 to 25 million households. Those people and the people living in poverty, that needs to be changed. But what I want to show, Chair, is that if you have to look at applications like this that are free and that are available online, we need to have more and more of such where we are sitting down and we make decisions and those decisions are informed. Now, in order for us to get to this level as a country, my colleagues are going to be taking us through the various models that can be implemented. But these are the people that we need to think about. Your annual income household. As you can see, the difference, Chair, between the wealthy, the rich, and the majority, which is the poor. It is there and it is glaring, and it cannot be. This graph needs to change and go the other way around. And with that, Chairperson, I'd like to close and having set that tone and give and hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rose. Always a pleasure listening to you brainstorm how we can unpack this whole industry. Dr. Rose, before you go, there's a question in the chat which I just want to voice to the platform that talks about we need to start manufacturing smart devices, tech hardware, and it must start after lockdown. Now, for example, our viewers that have joined the session, there's many with a 60% youth sort of quota in South Africa. There's now there's youth that have joined this that are sitting with ideas, with innovation, with projects that they would like to implement that they can make money from. What would you say is the first thing that a person like that could do to participate in the economic sharing? You spoke about the digital divide that's still there, that's so large in all these areas. What would you say would the first step for such a SMME be, or for such an individual? And what does South Africa need to consider to create an environment that could allow participation? Before you go, Dr. Rose, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. And I think that one of the things, as you know, I always like to face the reality, right? And the reality is this: if you have to learn from, I think it's Marathon that is making the phones, that is making the phones. Now, the first thing that we need to do, we must be able to repair those phones, the phones that we have now. We need to be able to repair them, because how do you manufacture something that you can't fix, right? Now, all of us, when you have a cracked screen, a simple thing as a cracked screen, what do? You take your phone to Chinese, you take your phone to, what do we call them, our brothers and our this, our my man, or this and that, and they change a simple thing, a screen for you, right? Now, what we need to do, and what, let me say what we are doing as PBICT, there's a program that we're calling School by Day, Varsity by Night, where we are teaching our members how to repair cell phones and laptops. How do you open that phone and how do you change that motherboard? And in that, you understand how it works. Now, once we understand how it works and how we can fix it, then we can start manufacturing it. Now, for us to manufacture those phones, we need things like clean rooms. We need all of those things. But for now, what we can do now, we have a lot of SMMEs that have designed phones and they get manufactured in China and come back. So we need to make sure that we have a huge population of people, especially the youth, that can fix these phones. Can you imagine in every voting district, you have a container run by an SMME that fixes phones, and that SMME starts to join phones, takes all the broken phones and starts to manufacture their own phone, loads the software. We're also then calling on SMMEs that are in the space of creating operating system to create our own operating system. Now, once we have that, we are slowly gearing up and starting to do those things. Otherwise, all you're going to be is an assembler, not a manufacturer of that. And lastly, Chair, what you are saying is that your government departments, your biggest consumers of these phones, they need to start having policies that say that we are going to consume of the technology that we use 80% homegrown technologies. Now that immediately creates a market for you to create a market that then increases the demand for local products. Now as PBICT, we engage government and we engage at different stakeholders, your MTNs and your Vodacoms, etc. And we are saying to them, why don't you start investing in cell phone manufacturing companies, and those must be run and owned by SMMEs. Thank you very much, Chair.
No, thank you very much, Dr. Rose. I sort of agree. I think the only way that we can stimulate this is if we allow new entrants, is if we stimulate SMME growth at a rate that is much faster than we used to. So I would hope that the policymakers who are listening and who have joined the conversation, even who will listen after, have taken note of your presentation and what is needed to stimulate this market. Thank you very much, Dr. Rose, for that presentation. With that being said, I will allow the next speaker, Professor Chris Ardendorf, to please get ready. In the meantime, I will just share a short summary of what Professor Chris will be presenting on. The next session 2 will discuss the stimulation of the economy towards economic growth using 4IR as a catalyst. Professor Chris Ardendorf will be the speaker and he will lead on the topic. Professor Chris, are you ready?
I'm ready. Can you hear me? Can we just ask Leon to take off his slides, please?
Yes, we can. Dr. Rose, can you please take off your shared screen?
Leon, can you just take off your slides, please? I need to load mine.
Let me just give him a call. Yes.
Yeah, I can't load my slides unless Leon is off. All right.
Hey, sorry, my brother.
All right, technology. Thank you very much, Chairperson Stephanie, for the opportunity, to you and Dr. Rolls. I'm just going to load my slides. Can you just confirm whether you can see it?
We can see it, Professor.
Can you see it loud and clear?
Yes, Prof.
All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Just for clarity, I am presenting this presentation of mine on a personal capacity as a senior futurist and not as a commissioner. However, there are some overlapping ideas that we came across. I want to congratulate Dr. Rolls for that Steamie presentation. I still remember very clearly sitting next to him at one of our functions or one of the thinking tanks we had, and he actually developed this whole Steamie idea on a serviette. And when he put it under my nose, I read on it for about 5 minutes, and then I soon realized, and I jokingly said to him, that he's not just a pretty face. Anyway, so on that great idea of yours, Dr. Ross, I do believe Steamie has got a great function in our future in South Africa. We've done some environmental scanning. So the presentation I'm going to give to you today is not a pretty picture. It's a picture we find ourselves in South Africa, but also globally. And this environmental scanning that's been taking place that I've been embarking on since the outbreak of the COVID-19 has changed global economics tremendously. So even though the topics are stimulating our economy towards positive growth using 4IR as a catapult, we cannot do it, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, if we don't look at the impact of COVID-19 on the global economics, including South Africa. I read an article in the New York Times about 9 days ago, and there were 50 statements on what we don't know, but need to know in terms of COVID-19 and the impacts on our societies. The one thing I want to say from the outset, that this is a universal problem. It's not just a South African problem. And we have to look at it from pre-lockdown, lockdown as we know it, and as what we experience globally at the moment, and most importantly, post-lockdown. And the reason for that is that the global trends of our countries are preparing ourselves for this post-lockdown is of immense importance, because as Dr. Rolls was indicating, we are talking about societies, our society, the fantastic South Africa that we do have, but we've got 57.4 million people, and how our decision making affects 57.4 million people, and how we need to prepare ourselves. So the global trends at the moment is moving away already from what countries are doing in terms of COVID-19 as we experience at the moment. And the global trends are how municipalities are currently preparing for strategic economic preparedness for post-corona. So it's very, very important that we actually take that points in consideration, because it becomes incredibly important how the municipalities that controls what's actually happening in our demographics plays a role. So once again, the picture I'm going to present is not a great one. And secondly, please don't shoot the messenger, but it's very important that we're all on the same platform, because this is universal. 7.4 billion people on earth, we're all affected by it. And during my presentation, never say never, and ask yourselves, what if? What if the stats and the figures we're giving ourselves are true, and what is the implication from it? So in doing this presentation and doing research in terms of COVID-19 and the global economics, we always make use of the genetic foresight model. Things are happening around the world. That becomes our inputs. And there is where foresight plays a role. What we need to ask ourselves, what seems to be happening, what's really happening and might happen pre-corona-19 and the impacts on our common economies within the fourth industrial revolution. And that becomes our outputs. What might we need to do from national, provincial, right down to the single member of all our societies, and our strategy, which will become very important. What will we do and how will we do it? So please, ladies and gentlemen, bear this in mind in the future planning for our strategic economic preparedness for post-corona and within the fourth industrial revolution. One thing from the fourth industrial revolution, and ladies and gentlemen, is that we have to realize the future is actually arriving faster than before. The first industrial revolution took around 100 years. The second one took another 100 years. The third one took about 50 years. The fourth industrial revolution, ladies and gentlemen, it's argued that it won't take longer than 10, possibly 15 years. So within the fourth industrial revolution, and as some people already indicated, 2020 is finished. We're actually doing crisis management now. So we're literally sitting with 9 years how to prepare our population for the fourth industrial revolution. As senior futurists, we're already embarking on research of the fifth industrial revolution. But let's stick to the fourth industrial revolution, for that's what we know. The critical thing is, ladies and gentlemen, it's not the strongest of species that survives, nor the most intelligent survive. It's the ones that's most adaptable change. So yes, coronavirus and the fourth industrial revolution is bringing us some changes, but it's how we ask ourselves, it's how we as a country, how we as municipalities, how we as individuals and organizations and businesses, such as the ICT, are adaptable to that change, and how we actually prepare ourselves. Because at the end of the day, it becomes critically important for how we move forward in our decision making. It's very important, ladies and gentlemen, that we get away from our comfort zones, where we feel safe and control, whether it's the Corona-19, whether it's economics, whether it's the fourth industrial revolution. We need to address our fear zone, where we lack confidence, find excuses, are affected by others' opinions. We've seen so much false information coming through on the fourth industrial revolution. And to delve through all of those, it's incredibly difficult and more so important to actually find what is the truth behind this coronavirus, and how do we need to prepare ourselves, because it becomes a learning zone. How do we deal with these challenges and problems? How do we acquire the new skills that Dr. Rolls were talking about? And we need to extend our comfort zone as a nation. Then only, ladies and gentlemen, we can move towards a growth zone where we find true purpose, live our dreams, set those new goals, and conquer the objectives as we move forward. So let's get to the talk about the fourth industrial revolution. It's very important that we're all on the same platform, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to defining the fourth industrial revolution. Because even with the 4IR, too many misinformation, false information, and wrong directions and wrong visioning are pointed towards the fourth industrial. So the 4IR is the fourth major industrial era since the initial industrial revolution of the 18th century. Now remember, there were only 1 billion people in the early 1800s. We're already 7.4 billion people on Earth as we stand. So it's very important that this affects everyone of all the population of the 7.4 billion. And the 4IR is characterized by the fusion of smart technologies that is blurring the lines between the physical, digital, and biological spheres, collectively referred to as the cyber-physical systems that has a direct impact on smart business models. So whatever decision making we're doing, ladies and gentlemen, it's all about how we incorporate smart technologies to help mankind. Every single industrial revolution made our lives easier. So too, the fourth industrial revolution will make our lives easier. But it's very important, how do we prepare our population of South Africans within the smart technologies to ensure smart business models as we move forward? So let's elaborate a little bit about this 4IR. This revolution is a continuation of the industrialization the world has seen over the past 200 years. And these smart technologies are quickly developing and merging, testing traditional means of economic growth and responses to technological change to determine the shape of economic progress through smart business models. But the 4IR also presented a turning point for us, for human development, as the rapid pace of technological change tests social cohesion and demands bold policy responses in order to better foster innovation and develop sound economic policy and prudently increases productivity all around. So the focus on it, ladies and gentlemen, is on innovation, sound economic policies, and the increasing of productivity as we move forward. And if you look from this slide, we can see the complexity, the differences between the first, second, third, and fourth industrial revolution. You can see how technology is playing a role ensuring smart business models as we move forward. So let's look at the factors driving this 4IR. The 4IR is being driven by the systematic transformation of technology, information, and innovation, but on a global scale. It's not just South Africa. There are 4 primary factors driving a state of industrialization. These factors will reshape our industries and will transform many facets of our society and human life as we know it. And the 4 primary factors, ladies and gentlemen, is all about emerging catalytic technologies. It's happening on a global scale, the role of machine learning, and the speed of change, as I was talking about in our second slide, of what we can experience with the 4IR within the next 10 years towards 2030. But as Bill Gates, not popular at the moment, but as he indicated, or the former Microsoft chairperson, never before in history has innovation offered so promise to so many in such a short space of time. So if you look at the 4IR drivers, ladies and gentlemen, of change, we are going to live longer. It's about extreme longevity, smart machines and systems, how technology can augment and extend our capabilities. We are living in a computational world that increasing sensors and processes, making the world a programmable system. We can see the role that 5G is already playing around the world. And no, 5G has got no influence that we know of, proven scientifically, that it enhances or is the origin of COVID-19. So globally connected world is the fourth driver for change. Superstructured organizations, social technologies drive new forms of production and value creation. And lastly, the new media ecology. New communications tools require media literacies beyond text. Even if you look, ladies and gentlemen, the Zoom that we are presenting for at the moment, the exponential growth since the lockdown is immense. But 4IR also presents as challenges and how we have to address it. Now, I don't like the word challenges, but it's the situations that we find ourselves globally in terms of 4IR. 4IR could yield greater inequality, particularly in its potential to disrupt our labor markets. The most valuable resources in any era driven by smart technologies will be those people who can create new ideas and innovations. In the future, ladies and gentlemen, talent more than capital will represent a critical factor for production as we know it. And the quest for talent will give rise to the job market that may become increasingly segregated. So as Dr. Rolls were indicating, it's very important. How do we bring up talent as a nation? So the big question always posed to us as futurists, the future of jobs, will it be affected? Globally, ladies and gentlemen, it's argued by 2030, we'll be around 8 billion people on Earth. And it's argued that 2 billion jobs is at high risk that will have disappeared, freeing up talent for many new fledgling industries. Now think about it, ladies and gentlemen, 2 billion jobs as we know it as of today is not going to exist by 2030 because of the changes we can experience within the fourth industrial revolution. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just a quarter of work that will be affected because not everybody is working. It'll be more like between 40 and 50% of jobs of people currently holding will not exist by 2030. And a rule of thumb, 60% of jobs 10 years from now haven't actually even been invented yet. Think about that statement, ladies and gentlemen. On the positive side, if you use mathematics, we'll actually have 10% more jobs towards 2030 that's currently on the market. But it will be within the fourth industrial revolution. Hence, again, the importance of preparing our nations. It's argued by futurists around the world that by 2030, 50% of traditional colleges and universities will have collapsed, paving the way for entire new education industry to emerge. Currently, as you experience, ladies and gentlemen, how few universities knows how to go online. But if you go to the micro training colleges, they're already online, producing education as we know it, what's needed within the 4IR. And it's argued by 2030, we'll see a surge of micro training colleges spring to life, each requiring less than 6 months of training and apprenticeship, just to teach people to switch professions. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. It shouldn't take 3 years to get a degree. Hence again, the importance how we're preparing our people for the future through education. Quick, fast, and reliable and practical in terms of the fourth industrial revolution. By 2030, basic computer programming will be considered a core skill required in 20% of all jobs. You need to know how to do computer programming. If we look, ladies and gentlemen, just by the end of 2022, if we look at the emerging roles, we'll see 133 million increase on data analysts and scientists, AI and machine learning specialists, general and operations managers, softwares, big data specialists, digital transformation specialists, new technology specialists, organization development specialists, information, IT services. So you can see, ladies and gentlemen, how this move according to the World Economic Forum as we move towards 2022. Remember, it's basically like 18 months from now. The declining roles, from a global change, we can already see. I mean, they're number one, data entry clerks, accounting, bookkeeping, payroll, admin, assembly and factory workers. Look at number 9 and number 10, general operations managers, postal service clerks. All these jobs, ladies and gentlemen, will go in decline. So the future is all about robotics, manufacturing, service, those undesirable jobs as we know it. All about the UAV, surveillance, logistics, security, connectivity. We can already see the changes that we experience in China, for instance, showing us the trends as we move forward. And artificial intelligence, data analytics, machine learning, autonomous vehicles, Dr. Rolls were talking about, and singularity, quantum computing, augmenting humans, nanotechnology, and nanobiotechnology as we move forward. So just some thoughts for consideration as we move forward. If we apply 4IR, the new game will be to find the fastest way to teach and retrain our people, ladies and gentlemen. I'm saying this again. The new game will be to find the fastest way to teach and retrain our people, such as platforms such as these. We've been doing immense research as futurists on the catalytic technologies that we were talking about. And as Eric Smith from Google, the executive chairman, everyone gets smarter because of these technologies, these analytic and anticipated catalytic technologies. And the empowerment of people is a secret to technological progress. Think about it. The secret to technological progress is through empowerment that Dr. Rolls were referring upon. So this is a statistical formula. I won't go into much detail that we use. And we do this yearly as futurists, preparing for what are the effectiveness index of a value producing network as we know it. I will just briefly go through that. We look at the anticipated catalytic technology, and we generate the genericity score in terms of that, just the first 10. At number 1 came up neural networks and deep learning, AI performing local work, but on a global scale. So even though we're in South Africa, we can actually do work in the UAE, Europe, America as we know it. At number 3 comes autonomous cars and trucks. This is going to be the next game changer that we can experience as mankind, ladies and gentlemen, because it's going to have the same impact as when the internet came out, how it changed our lives. So autonomous cars and trucks is a big driver for change as we move forward. So material scanner, radical growth in computer power, ambiguous environment and Internet of Things, facial and emotional recognition, projection through 5G, speech recognition, synthesis and interpreting, memristus and neural processors, commercial platforms for sharing economy, and all the way, ladies and gentlemen, to number 100. This we do on a yearly basis. And you can imagine how many thousand anticipated catalytic technologies are out there. We have to look on a yearly basis. What are the changes that we as mankind will experience in moving forward in terms of that? So let's have a look at the global economic drivers for change as we experience. For some time now, I have been arguing, ladies and gentlemen, about the impending major economic stock market crisis as we know it, that will hit by the year 2020. Dr. Rolls will know last year when I presented at certain platforms that, guys, we have to start looking at the trends because there is a stock market crash coming up. And we've already seen a 23% drop in the Dow Jones as of February. But my ongoing argument is, ladies and gentlemen, the markets is this far only given us a glimpse of what it is to come. In the past, in 2008, 2007, when I've warned about economic crisis coming, of a share market crisis at that particular time, Very few people listened, and only when I dealt with the Canadian and the Greek government, etc., indicated to them, only afterwards, the question is, but why weren't we warned? So this time, don't be surprised when it actually do happen. I do forecast a second round of coronavirus coming out, looking at through my environmental scanning efforts, looking at around from August to December. Think about the economic impact and a stock market impact that we will have. Most likely, and similar to the previous ones, a new crisis will start in the United States as we know it, and it will last longer with far more devastating impact in the Western economies, causing stagflation, leading to a series of bankruptcies. So once again, as futurists, we are warning about what is actually coming up. We can think why it is so important that post-coronavirus preparation for our economies is very important as we move forward. Nations around the globe, especially in Europe, have lost confidence in the states, as you know it. These nations are quietly dismantling a 7-decade-old alliance for the states, building instead of alternative systems of bilateral trade. Furthermore, the US dollar has been losing ground for some time now. And as the Bank of England Governor Mark Carney announced in January 2019, ultimately we will have reserve currencies other than the US dollar. And as the Professor Alfred McCoy from Wisconsin University, the collapse of the dollar will mean soaring prices, ever rising in unemployment. So from a true reality, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see a continuing decline in real wages throughout the 2020s. Domestic divisions widen to violent clashes and device debates, often over symbolic, insubstantial issues as we move forward. There's going to be a severe awakening to the escalation of risks, but we are in a leaderless world. We are very blessed in South Africa that we've got distinct leadership under our president. We are very blessed. And in my personal mind, the examples that our presidency through these planning efforts, how we planned and positioned South Africa within COVID-19 is actually best practice in the world. If we look at the Trump administration, if we look at Russia, I am very convinced that we as South Africans can actually show what a best case benchmark needs to be in terms of crisis management within a disaster. Thus, my forecast for 2020 will deliver both an unparalleled global economic, but as well as a political crisis as we move forward. It is also important, ladies and gentlemen, to bear the cognizance of the fact that there will be at least 5 European countries will suffer from the crisis in this coming year, majorly. I forecast that there will be European banks, certain European banks will go bankrupt. On the positive side, if you look at Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Korea, will grow at steady rate during the next 10 years. I also believe that in 10 years' time, some of the African countries will become more developed than certain developed countries in Europe. I know with my leadership, I'm working in our municipalities when I tell them that we as South Africa are more developed than countries, for instance, such as Greece. They can't believe it. But when you actually go there and you have certain meetings and how they plan and structure, we can actually teach them a thing or two. So the trend is, the global trend is that more African countries will become more developed than certain developed countries in Europe alike. But we are focusing on economics, and I do believe we'll have a global economic crisis leading to stagflation. And the crisis and emerging conflicts can lead to the Third World War, ladies and gentlemen. That's how sensitive this matter is, and how the powers from the West to the East are. There are lots of problems and lots of tension between these two countries in terms of that. And we could see a new world order governed by the G2 in the future. United States and China will most probably emerge. One big message that I want to bring across, ladies and gentlemen, ask yourselves, what if the second round of coronavirus breaks out? There's high quality research out there indicating that we can experience a second round of coronavirus coming from around August right out to December. We should witness a renaissance at what we have a global Marshall-like economic plan leading to a global economic recovery and prosperity. Based on the above, our best advice is to prepare for prolonged recession, possibly depression, even if it doesn't happen. But in South Africa, we're already 2 consecutive quarters in recession. We need another 2, then we are classified as a depressed economy. So think about the possibilities, and it is highly probable that we'll move in that line. The prescriptions from uncertain futures to focus on resilience to withstand uncertainties and shocks. And we need to build focus-specific growth strategies by adopting and enhancing technical and innovation competencies, ladies and gentlemen. This is the way we will break through in South Africa. And the focus should be on drivers for the long term. If we look at the Nordic countries, ladies and gentlemen, they all have ministers of future studies, ministers of foresight for development, all having a long-term look. And if we look at the most innovative nations in the world, it's those nations that actually have a long-term look, as we know it. Let's look at the World Economic Freedom audit that they've done in 2019. And the world's leading economies found that at least, can everybody put their things on mute, please, because it's making noise? We can, as a nation, create and generate the estimated 2 million to 3 million jobs in South Africa, plus an additional 50 million jobs on the African continent. So there are pockets of success that we can actually embark upon. And the audit already indicated that there are certain things that we need to take cognizance of the fact if we backcast, ladies and gentlemen, for our economy in South Africa. Since 1960, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and Botswana GDP growth has beaten us. South Korea, which has a lower per capita GDP than South Africa in 1960, today their per capita GDP is 32 times higher than ours. And I must reiterate, ladies and gentlemen, in 1960, the then president of South Korea got hold of a futurist, a senior futurist, Professor Alvin Toffler, preparing that nation for the future. He died 2 years ago, but we can already see the significant difference between the North and South Korea as we know it. So for South Africa, it becomes imperatively important that we have a longer term foresight for the development as we move forward. And South Africa's capita GDP was a third larger than Singapore's in 1960. Singapore is now 7 times higher than South Africa. So from these, we can actually benchmark where we can actually move forward. And Botswana, whose growth has outstripped even that of the Asian tigers as we know it. Nigeria, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, and officially, now tops South Africa as the continent's biggest economy. And as from the 3rd of March 2020, it's now confirmed that the continent's second largest economy. In the last 2 years, it was then South Africa, then Nigeria, then South Africa again, and now it's officially indicated. Zimbabwe and South Africa now have the same growth, economic growth forecast for 2020 from the IMF. And the IMF has forecast South Africa and Zimbabwe in 2020 will have the same growth rate of 0.8%. But bearing in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this was in February 2020. The true effects of Corona will actually, we will see a decline between 5 and 7% GDP for this year. So we don't have much money. When I did the environmental scanning in terms of the various proposed ideas in South Africa, stimulus incentives, and I'm bringing these to the fore, ladies and gentlemen, I don't necessarily agree with them, but it's some considerations. On tax, it's argued that we need to reduce the tax benefit to all and everyone as a direct stimulus for the economy. On the restructuring of government departments to integrate with DTI, break down department silos and reduce the public sector wage bill with 160 billion rand as we know it. Now, as an individual, I argue this will be a driver for change, seeing that our three-tier move in government will move from national, that we'll have districts, municipalities, and local municipalities. Province, the role of province is actually posing a bigger problem, and as we can experience it with the current coronavirus that we experience. We need to invoke the Temporary Removal of Restrictions and Economic Activities Amendment Act of 1987, as certain people indicated. Certain people indicated that the laws have through employment creation. SMEs are falling at a rate of 75%. So the success rate is only 25%, ladies and gentlemen. So we need to have a look at that. There's numerous theories indicating on a general application of minimum wages. And it's indicated, ladies and gentlemen, that last year we've lost 400,000 high-income professionals. With our spare capacity in construction, engineering, science, finance, etc., and a state on a lead to the new Africa economic dawn that we need to follow. And the focus should be on wealth creation, and the sun will set on poverty. Our focus is too much on job creation. Our focus should be on wealth creation, because jobs will follow wealth as we know it. So if we look at the global trends, President Donald Trump in the UK reduced company tax already. There are various arguments flying around that we must follow America's example, where Trump reduced company tax from 35% to 21% to turn the economy around. In the UK, from 30% to 19%, and China's CI rate is currently at 25%. It's also argued by certain economists that we need to reduce company tax to 17%. Similar, Mr. Mboweni could reduce company tax to 70% for accumulated 40%. The current 28% plus 14% on dividends, and even as high as 52% to enable entrepreneurs to build capital and pay taxes. The fact that an expected 63.3 billion less tax will be collected than budgeted for last year signals that the tipping point, and for us as futurists, a tipping point is a critical branching point, has been reached, and that the higher tax rates will generate less income moving forward. So there's some people that even arguing that we need to reduce the VAT to 10%, even 5%. But the argument is in 2019-20, VAT contributed 346.2 billion to the budget. Reducing VAT by 5%, 150 billion will directly alleviate poverty and stimulate the economy. The recent increase of VAT to 15% by some economists indicated that negatively impact on the economy. No business takes home 15% on turnover without any risk. And some argue, in fact, that without any risk, government now actually profits more than business themselves. There are arguments that we need to reduce the personal tax to 11% and reduce excessive property tax as we move forward. So there are real indicators of how do we realign our industrial policies. Macroeconomics involve all government departments that are now functioning in silos and organizational pyramids. And secondly, automotive positive balance of 83.7 billion in 2017, whereby 300,000 jobs were created. This highly successful incentive schemes were developed, and they've replicated the potential growth in jobs can be as follows, that we can actually create another 700,000 jobs in agriculture, and in the metal industry, another metal and allied industry, another 300,000 jobs, and other industries such as clothing, tourism, etc. With a focused investment will generate substantial numbers of jobs. Now, I want to reiterate, ladies and gentlemen, it's not necessarily my opinion. It's various economists, that I just summarize of what are the different options available to us. So the new economic dawn will have a Marshall Plan ripple effect throughout Africa. We must remember that South Africa is part of Africa, and it's very important that we get this as our president wants, that we want to unite Africa where trade can actually take place. Our focus should be not just having PV ICT in South Africa. It should be Africa, because that's where all future business will be in as we move forward. We need more research, ladies and gentlemen, in 54 African countries eliminate trade barriers. But NEPAD Business Foundation analysis in 2018, which it analyzed the volume of documentation required for South African-based exporter to move products, just for instance, like in Angola. You need 56 custom signatures, 84 customer stamps, 83 documents amounting to 634 pages, and 20 SADC certificates, and 5 invoices to export a single container between 2 countries. This is critically important if we want to take PV ICT to the forward. We can't have this type of legislation as we move forward. And it can take 10 to 15 working days just to process the paperwork as we know it. So let's look at the geopolitics and economy scale that affects South Africa. Global markets are very volatile, ladies and gentlemen, and it's expected to increase. Ask yourselves, what if the possibility is that COVID-19 will have a second round of spurring up, and ask what if it will do to the global markets. And as you and I know, if the global market sneezes, we catch the cold here in South Africa. The rand, as we know it already, ladies and gentlemen, is 85% undervalued. But we need to take strategies, how do we can capitalize on top of that. There are systematic movements from the west to the east, what we call the Asian tigers. And some people argue that we are part of BRICS, and we're actually, unfortunately seen as a threat. So let's look at the global economies at a scale. USA is a $14 trillion economy, but they have 20% of the world's debt. And technically, ladies and gentlemen, they are bankrupt. Greece is 140%. Ironically enough, Japan has got the highest debt to GDP ratios, 160%. The UK has got 80%. South Africa is in a much better position, around 60% debt to GDP as we move forward. If you look at the Asian tigers and you combine those trillion-dollar economies together, ladies and gentlemen, the East combined, the Asian tigers, the economies are bigger than the West already as we know it. But if China's 5% economic growth has the power to pull everybody down. So even with the Chinese economy, we have to hope that their economy holds out, because if they sneeze, we get an even bigger cold as we move forward. So in Africa, Africa is a future powerhouse towards 2050. Undoubtedly, ladies and gentlemen. And currently, as we know, Africa is the second largest GDP growth in the world. We will have we're currently 1.2 billion people in Africa. My apologies. By 2050, we'll have 2 billion people. And 60% of the 2 billion people will be youth. So the future workforce of the world is Africans. And China sees Africa as a resource base, but it's how we manage that. And Africa is China's continent of choice. The old thinking of the old Bible story that China will overtake the world. The China will never invade the world except if it's Tibet and Taiwan, ladies and gentlemen. So the real rules in China is geared towards business. But from an African perspective, there's always this bad thinking that we don't know how to implement governance. But Africa is coming out of bad governance and will do economically well towards 2050. And China will ensure that we enforce better political governance. But as South Africans, ladies and gentlemen, we need to find special spaces for competitive advantage. Our wealth, ladies and gentlemen, is in our grounds. And on top of the grounds is what we can do with the ground in terms of agriculture. So those are the 2 rules that we should implement in terms of wealth creation for our nation. On top of that, we have huge tourism potential. I know, as we know, we're experiencing at the moment is through coronavirus, a lockdown doesn't pose much hope. But trust me, ladies and gentlemen, as we move forward and as we move through coronavirus, the effects 2021, possibly in the beginning of 2022, we will see tourism as a huge potential and a money enabler for South Africa. We need to become an export nation. But as Dr. Rolls were indicating, what we produce in our country, we need to embark on where we as South Africans do the actual work before we actually export, because you have a win-win situation. And this is how you create wealth at the end of the day. What is very important, ladies and gentlemen, is we need to create wealth for our people. And one thing is 49% of the world's wealth is in property. And property has given us 11% year-on-year growth since 1960 up to the as we know it as of today. So no investment, ladies and gentlemen, can give you a better return than property. Ironically enough, 73% of South Africa's wealth is in property. Some interesting facts. We need, at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, to believe, and I firmly believe it as a senior futurist, that we will have one of the better passports in the world because of all this geopolitics actually happening around the world. Our current GDP is below 1%, and as we know, it between a decline of 5 to 7%. We have to address unemployment because, as we know, 30% of the total population unemployed. The current age groups, ladies and gentlemen, the 80% black, 9% colored, 8.5% white, and 2.5% Asian. By 2030, the youth. If we look at the ratio of population, you'll see that 91% of our population will be black, 7% will be colored, 1% Asian, 1% white. Now, think about what if black economic empowerment will have a function towards 2030. Current employment, ladies and gentlemen, our youth, the figures are between 54% and 74%. It is a very sad figure at the end of the day that more of our black youth are unemployed than anything we can actually experience. So what is very important, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have 27 million youth, job seekers towards 2030. We can't export our youth. We'll have to create jobs for all of them. We need to start by educating our youth. Some credible research around the world indicated by the United Nations and published by the BBC indicated if we can educate every single member, every single kid in our country up to the age of 15 years, we'll have the second highest GDP growth in the world. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. These are credible research by the United Nations and is published by the BBC. We'll have the second biggest GDP growth in the world, if only we can ensure that all our kids up to the age of 15 achieve the basic level of education. Some 5 game changers for South Africa. We need 5.7% GDP growth, ladies and gentlemen. The figures are not good. And remember, every single year that we miss out on this 5 to 7% GDP growth, it adds up, becomes a snowball. And we have to look at how do we address the social welfare beneficiaries, because we need to supply for our people, no doubt. But if you look at the figures, we were 3.5 million people in 2001 on social welfare beneficiary schemes. And it moved to 17.5 million in 2014 and 18 million around 2019. We need to also address the domestic debt to income ratios in 2017 is now at 86%, up from 50% in early 2000s. So think about it. For every rand that you earn, you owe 86 cents of that 1 rand. So it's very important, ladies and gentlemen, that we actually have to look at those kind of things. We have looked in the past. The best era we had was in the Mbeki era. We had a 3% GDP average over a couple of years. Just to try and save in terms of times, ladies and gentlemen, we need to look why some of our top talent leave the country. And the 4 biggest reasons that I give is children's safety in the future, crime, in particular rape and hijacking, quality of education system, and broad-based black economic empowerment. We need to open up our borders as well for talent that can also come and assist with us in terms of the 4th Industrial Revolution. We also need to make sure that teaching becomes a declared essential service in South Africa. We've got 400,000 teachers in this country. There's a need for 800,000. So we need to look at those kind of things. 70% of our state schools are free. We need to make it 100% free. And we need to have feeding schemes. And our priority for administration should foremost be to save our children, to prepare them for life, in order to also be able to contribute to the future tax force as we know it. At university level, we need to consider the payback schemes. like the African brothers and sisters that comes to our universities, their governments pay for it. But once you study, you have to go and work on local governmental level and things like that. 1% of the global dropout rate for secondary education. It's 5% in Africa, and it's far too high, ladies and gentlemen, in South Africa at 14%. Top issues in public service sector in South Africa. Currently, 55% of our employment is in the public sector. It is very important, ladies and gentlemen, that we prepare for the issues. Now that we are junk status, we made certain mistakes in 2012. And the IMF terms of agreement, member states are subject to regular inspections and appraisals concerning the obligations and duties regarding fiscal policy. In 2012, the fund's delegation to South Africa expressed considerable shock in Pretoria's priorities at that particular time. And the truth reality is, ladies and gentlemen, that we got reprimanded when the IMF gave us money and they came to do the inspections. They said that they've never seen anything like that in the world, that we needed to spend the money on infrastructure development. But what actually happened at that particular time, civil servants got a 40% pay increase. So prepare ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, that we should rather look at other avenues for when we want money. I hear there are indications we're going to ask the BRICS Bank to assist us as South Africans in terms of economic stimulus packages, because the IMF is going to put serious restrictions on us as South Africa. So we need to prepare ourselves for, as a country, for moving forward on top of that. In summary, ladies and gentlemen, if we look at the income per person, in 1990 we had, if you look at the world per capita income, we were standing at 111%. As we know it, as of 2017, 2018, 2019, we're actually 30% poorer now as South African citizens than we were in 1990. So we need to ensure that our strategies are towards wealth creation. So the job creation philosophy hasn't worked. We need to focus towards wealth creation, because once our focus is on wealth creation, jobs will automatically flow as we know it. If you look at the skills, ladies and gentlemen, based from our current research, at all based around the ICT concepts as we move forward. Even second from the bottom, blockchain. It's popping up. Our students that are studying in blockchain get swooped up by the Chinese within a short space of time as we move forward. We need to, when I say that we need to focus, that we need our economic policies to focus towards wealth creation, ladies and gentlemen, because it's argued towards 2030, sub-Saharan Africa, the people that will live in extreme poverty is actually going to grow. Hence again, but we'll see from the rest of the world, it's all declining. So it's very important that we take the economic focus on wealth creation for our nation as we move forward. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we've got 1.3 trillion debt as we move forward. We need to make sure. We need to make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that our labor productivity, second from the bottom. You can see second from the bottom. South Africa. It's not a pretty picture as we move forward. Our unemployment is getting too much. We've got 38.6 million total adult population. Only 10.3. 10.3 is unemployed. So if you look at the expanded rate of unemployment, 38.5%, it's not a pretty picture. And 860 people have joined unemployment queues every single day since 2008. So how do we focus, ladies and gentlemen, for our total population, that we can actually have, that we can assist 6.1 million unemployed youth to find them work. Think about the psychological impact. My biggest argument is, ladies and gentlemen, we're not educating our kids for employment. We're teaching kids for yesterday's future. We need to teach the kids, as our Honorable Minister Stella Sikau says, teach them for the future. And hence, the biggest message that I want to bring across is, let's start on education as we move forward, ladies and gentlemen. Currently, South Africa is the third best investment destination in Africa now. Trust me, we will be back. I have firm belief in it. The we'll have one of the better passports in the world moving forward. But as Dr. Rolls were indicating, the future jobs, ladies and gentlemen, 75% will involve science, technology, engineering, and maths. It's as simple as that. But our 15-year-olds, remember the 15-year-old benchmark we were talking about? 42% are not proficient in maths. 35% are not proficient in science. 35% are not proficient in technology. I blame it on teachers. We need to get the teachers to train on these aspects that are globally best practice models. So how do we manage this complex change, ladies and gentlemen? Second last slide. We need to have the vision within 4IR. We need to have the skills, incentives, resources, and action plans. If we don't have vision, we'll have confusion. If we don't have the skills, we'll have anxiety. If we don't have the incentives, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have resistance. If we don't have the resources, we're going to have frustration. And if we don't have an action plan, even with post-corona, we'll have false starts. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Prof. Chris. Your presentations always hit us hard in the sense that we need to gear ourselves in the right direction from all sectors. It looks like it's not just up to one sector to change. There's many legislative changes that must happen to set the environment for where we want to go. Prof, before you go, I'm just going to summarize a few comments on the chat that I'm getting. There's the comments about that the wealth is in our land, air and water. We must build on wealth on this, that wealth must be created for our people using property, that we must educate our youth using rapid quality, efficient education system. There's a comment from Rendani about maritime, that our waters have great things we can use to benefit the nation. There's a comment about the township and rural economy, and I think I'll elaborate on that as I close. There's subsistence farmers, and to make them the next food lovers market, using tech to enable logistics, blockchain technology, someone has mentioned. There's a question about whether there's an alternative to IMF or BRICS to assist South Africa in economic stimulus packages. That's a question to you, Prof. Then there's another comment about teachers having to be empowered, and whether you have any comments relating to that. The third question, Prof, and I'm going to close it at question 3, is that what skills must we focus on to be part of 4IR? I also want to tie into the comment about rural communities. You will know that in South Africa, there's a 70% poverty sort of percentage, and that is why I think our tax bills are so high. And I'm going to speak as myself as a SMME. I mean, my tax bill last year, just on provisional tax, was 180,000. That is excluding VAT, Prof. My VAT bill every 2 months, we're looking at 40 or 50,000. I'm a SMME. I practice alone in my law firm. There's no one else assisting me. So these are the tough realities. Above that, we're paying pay as you earn for our employees. We're paying tax on our own drawings we make from our own money. So I think the 3 questions that I mentioned, as well as the sentiment on rural and townships, Prof, what would you say we can do as South Africa to just, with COVID-19 that has just hit us, how can we expedite the move into the future, and are we ready as South Africa for these moves, Prof?
I must be honest, Chair, that we must never be fooled. Our country is ready. We've got fantastic leadership. If you look at our president, the actions that he's taken for this coronavirus, as I mentioned, it's global best practice. And I always say, you know, we are so accustomed in South Africa that we think we're not good enough. I mean, that's our general perception. We're actually brilliant at what we do. But there's certain things that we actually have to address to get better at. There's certain global best practices in terms of, let's say, for instance, education. As we know in the slides, we came stone last when it comes to science, maths, etc., which is terribly bad. We can't go worse than last in the world. So we have to look at what is the best practice in terms of science technologies, and as Dr. Rolls were indicating, what we need to focus on. So That becomes critical. But if I were president in our country, the first thing I would do is open up our teachers training colleges. As of tomorrow, we close down all our teachers training colleges. So we're not getting the quality of teachers, and we're not getting the quality of headmasters that's needed for the fourth industrial revolution. The young guns will teach. The young guns will teach us some technologies because they understand it. The older generations don't actually understand. So that's the first thing what I do. Skills, there are many skills, but it'll all be around smart technologies. We need to focus on this technological development of our nation, because if we don't do it, we will be left behind. But very importantly, we can have all platforms that we have in the world. If we don't have Wi-Fi, access to data means nothing, which brings me to the point of the rural areas. My biggest concern is always, and I work in the rural areas, and I'm very blessed to work in the rural areas, but it's as a very knowledgeable municipal manager taught me, Dr. Tandikile Njimba. He says the role of government is to set the platform so that business can take place. It's not government's role, but we need to set a platform and a basis for where business can take from. So my focus is we need to give these people access to data. We need to have Wi-Fi to every single member. Without Wi-Fi, no 4IR. In terms of, on top of that, is we need to supply, give early childhood developmental centers. We need to focus on having schools that function properly. Have the best teachers that knows technology to train our people. There are various online platforms bringing up, and I know of certain companies that I argue and I sort of promote because they've got global best practice in terms of online learning. Now, where they go to sit in the top schools, they see the lectures that's taking place, and for free and online, they bring those platforms to the rural areas. Now, then we talk about education for our people. Then we give them a good platform to work for so they can have all the opportunities that the privileged kids are actually having. We need to make sure that we have level ground for people. I also focus on ensuring that we need training academies. Even with Dr. Rolls, I've spoken to him how many times, that we need to have in our rural areas training academies too, so we can assist our people, even if it's just hotspot training academies. But we can actually help our people on the ground, because we're 57.4 million people in South Africa, and we're a family. And the old saying is, family is all about togetherness, and nobody gets left behind. So that is the critical thing, is how do we ensure that nobody gets left behind? Because we are a distressed nation at the moment. There's too much poverty. Rural areas, the indications are 80% live in extreme poverty, near poverty, or poverty as such. That's unacceptable. Hence again, when I argue, our focus as South Africans should be towards wealth creation. Wealth creation. Local districts, municipalities, rural municipalities, give those title deeds of those properties in the people's hands. Then you create wealth. We can't just keep them and withhold the title deeds. You as a lawyer, the chairperson, please fight for that. Then we create wealth for our nation. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
No, thanks a lot, Prof. Chris. There's the question about the IMF funding. Is there an alternative? I think it's been posted twice, so it looks like it's quite important to a few members. And then there's also the question about why you mentioned that RSA is a risk because of BRICS membership. I think the question is just, why is that? So just those two in closing, Prof.
I'm gonna think, we see the global economics and politics, geopolitics, as it were, that you can already see the West is starting to lose momentum. They're losing power. Yeah, pops the Asian tiger economies up. They're posing as a threat to the West. And as I've indicated, if you combine the tiger economies' GDPs, they're already bigger than that of the West. You understand where I'm coming from? So now we as South Africans, we're part of BRICS. You understand? So Brazil, Russia, India, China. Because that link with us with China, the West sees us, unfortunately, as a threat. So in other words, is they don't look at the rand. Why is the rand so undervalued? I mean, this first time the dollar is touching 20 to 1, the euro is 21 to the rand, the pounds already was at 23 to the rand. What? There's no basis for it. We're actually getting punished because of our alliances. But I agree with our president. Our alliances should be with the East. We should be with the East. And it's best case practice in terms of that. The question around the IMF, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, the IMF works this way. Like we have the rating agencies, they come and rate you. We had the 2010 Soccer World Cup, which is most probably one of the better times we've experienced as South Africans, how proud our whole nation was during that period. Crime dropped to almost zero. Our people were catering for the rest of the world. It was an absolute fantastic atmosphere. Now, what actually happens is we spend a lot of money in our stadiums, and the IMF gave us money to spend on to also work further on infrastructure in South Africa. But the then government, what they then did is they actually, instead of spending on infrastructure, they actually spending it on giving all public officials 40% pay increase. But they come back yearly and they inspect. Hence again, you will often find, forbid the day we have to ask the IMF for more money, because they're going to put, there's certain rules and regulations. They're going to say, okay, who's your tax paying people? This is what we need. So instead of we want to drop tax, now you're going to pay more tax. And as we know that the taxpayers are very few, 1.17 million people pay 70% of the payers you earn tax. That's a massive, that's a lot of pressure on very few people. So the thing is, if we have to ask some institution for money, the most probable answer would be the IMF, number one, but they're going to come with serious restrictions, Chair, serious restrictions. Restrictions I don't even want to know, but it might force us to address certain limitations that we have as a country. BRICS Bank, we are part of the BRICS Bank. I don't think we're going to get enough money from the BRICS Bank that we need post-corona. There are other options. You know, there's possibly national banks, there's possibly, you know, further African banks, those kind of things. But money we're going to need. And there's going to be serious restrictions that's going to be posed. Because, you know, you can't just borrow money, you need to get money to pay off the debt. I mean, if you look at just the interest that we pay off on our debt, it's astronomical per year. So our biggest expenditure is actually to pay the debt. So now we're going to go for more money, more money, more money. Hence again, that our strategic focus economically has to be very, very wise. And we're going to have to be forced. My gut feeling tells me, Chair, we're going to have to be forced at some stage to be humble pie and take the restrictions that we need to implement.
No, thank you very much, Prof. Chris. I think we are all enlightened. Thank you very much for your time and for your detailed presentation. There are questions about the presentation, but I think we'll take it offline and just discuss whether it can be shared and what aspects of it can be shared.
No.
And we'll reply to the other questions offline, Prof, and then you can just give us a sort of written response, because there are questions on the Facebook. It's just about one or two. So in the same, for time's sake, we'll just move on and then answer that offline and proceed. Thank you very much, Professor. We appreciate it. For those of you who have recently joined us, the topic for today is the 4IR response to rapid economy recovery and capacity building we have invited 4 industry experts who are sharing their ideas on a post-COVID response and what South Africa can do and how we can position ourselves as PBICT. Those of you who know us would know that we fight for inclusion and we advocate strongly that South Africa belongs to all living it and all should share in the wealth. We have covered our first 2 speakers who delved a lot into COVID-19 and how it will affect the economy and what we can do as youth and as businesses to get on par with where we are going and the changing economy. We can now proceed to our 3rd speaker, who is Ms. Lindiwe Mkwanza. She will share with us on the impact and effect of growing and commercializing homegrown IP and technologies that can take South Africa to the top of the list on the 4IR agenda. I see she was just having some connection issues. If you'll just bear with me a minute or 2. I'm just waiting for her to get online.
Hello.
Hello, Ms. Lindiwe Mkwanza. Thank you very much for joining us. I've done the introduction. The platform is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't know if I should apologize in advance. I'm struggling very badly with my network here. So if there's problems, know that I am struggling. But let's go. Let me get to the point. Thank you very much, Prof. It was fantastic. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much.
Oh my goodness. Hello?
We can hear you.
Let's kill the video. Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, stop.
We can hear you.
Hi, is it much better?
Yes,
Is it
we
much
can
better?
hear you.
Okay. That
Ms. Mkwanza, your mic is muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I've just canceled the video. I'm hoping it will be much better. I'm frozen here. Hello?
We can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay, I can continue.
Yes. Yes, continue.
Okay. I think I would like to thank my colleague, Professor Chris, and equally Leon for inviting me into this chat. Very critical discussion, very critical topic, especially at the juncture that we are in as a country right now and globally, in terms of your COVID-19, but more than anything else, in terms of your 4th industrial revolution. I think the previous gentleman and my other colleague, Dr. Sibongiseni Twazejana, will agree with me that we've been in this journey for almost over a year now, and some of us even longer. So it's very, very important that we start chatting about this. And they always say there's a silver lining. As bad as that sounds, COVID-19, somehow it's a silver lining for some of us because it has actually opened our eyes and even our leaders in terms of saying we are too reliant on the external forces as a country. We've known that as a 4IR team, but COVID-19 actually opened our eyes. With our kids sitting at home, not knowing what to do in terms of education, we can see our government is trying very hard, bless our president and his team. But we can also sense that most of them, they are not quite sure where to start and where to end. So a quick one for me, I was given a topic here, and they said the impact of technology innovation that can propel South Africa as a key innovator and contributor on the 4th industrial revolution. So I've divided into 2 so that we can have a bit of a comprehensive discussion on the 2 questions here. The first one, I've said it's technology innovation, homegrown technology in South Africa as a key innovator. So I'm going to touch on that. And then later on, when I close, I'm going to close the South Africa as a key contributor to the 4th industrial revolution globally. Something very critical that Professor have indicated in terms of where we sit as a country. We all know that our economy is struggling. We all know that the rand is doing whatever it's doing, whether it's influenced by international and foreign forces, but we are in the space and it's not a nice space to be in, and we need to get our economy back in place, our industries back in place, and we're not doing very well. I'm talking as a businesswoman right now. I am struggling myself in all the sectors that I'm in. Technology, innovation, and homegrown South Africa. There is a perception that as South Africans, and Africa is large, we lack innovations or we are not innovators. That is far from the truth. From the days of Mapunguwe, almost 900 years ago, we've been great innovators, especially in South Africa. And one of the biggest conversations we've been having in these past months with the different sectors and government is the issue of saying, how do we get our people to innovate and be creative? Our people are innovators and our people are creative. However, the systems that we have are not very conducive to actually grow innovation in this country. The issue of intellectual property leaving this country is a serious crime that we are doing to our people. I'll give an example. Just recently, not long ago, if you do read your news, we had the biggest global invention that happened in Pretoria, which was a 3D ear printing by Dr. Chilifore. That invention happened about 2 years ago. If I can ask you right now, if we have actually secured that IP for that invention from one of our own. The sad truth is that we haven't. Am I still there? You can still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. You can still hear me. And secondly, we had a young gentleman who actually invented one of the leading technology, water purification system. Nkosinathi Nkomo, bless his soul, may he rest in peace. That innovation did not sit with Nkosinathi Nkomo as well. And then just last year, a smart glove sensor, one of the first in the world, was invented by Lucky Nechitende from Limpopo. If I ask you right now, does that IP sit with South African government, or we have secured that and we are jealous of that? I can tell you right now that Lucky might be swallowed by Silicon Valley in USA or China. Ubuntu operation system. As we are communicating now and we're using our laptops and our systems, most of us are using Microsoft, if not Microsoft, another foreign system. We had Ubuntu operation system, which was invented by one of our own, Mark Chuckleworth. You would think that we will actually utilize that for security, for defense, and other things which are critical to our own. But if I can go to your government or our government system, almost all of us are either using Microsoft or some Chinese system. The biggest one, Elon Musk, one of our own. Tesla is the biggest thing right now with automation of cars and electronic vehicles. We failed to actually secure the IP of Elon Musk. That's why now he's in Silicon Valley. And just to mention a few, even on our government, innovation has been the biggest thing. We are innovators. Am I still there? With Denel, we have invented Roy Falk. With Nexa, our nuclear energy corporation, we have invented, we are one of the leading radioisotopics countries with the best technologies. The reason I'm giving you these examples is the fact that there is this underlying lie, I don't know how else to put it, that we cannot invent, or we are not inventors, or we always have to depend on international invention to actually come and assist us in the country where we don't need to. The biggest component here is an appetite to invest in our own inventions. I don't know if I should be, or I'll be politically correct to also say there is no willpower to actually commercialize invention of our own. With those alone, we have lost so much value in our monies and our wealth because it is sitting somewhere else. The water membrane that is used in the desalination plants that is leading right now globally is sitting in Israel and Singapore. The inventor of that system was a South African young boy from Cape Town. So we need to actually look back at ourselves to say, while we are, Leon, am I still there?
Where is it?
Yes,
I'm still there. Okay. Second. Okay, please let me know if I'm gone, because I've been gone too many times. I'm a bit insecure right now.
All right.
Okay.
The reason why we are where we are as a country is very critical for us to actually start looking at ourselves, because we can blame everybody, but in the past 25 years, I'm not even going to go beyond pre-apartheid. In the past 25 years, the amount of innovation that could have revitalized our economy, and we've lost because we are either blind to innovation or we are unknowledgeable about things that are critical to the country. It's a crime to our people. So the issue of commercialization, Chris and Leon and Dr. Sibongiseni, unless we actually make sure that our laws and regulations and policies, they close that in, we will keep on losing these things to all these countries. Yes, China is here. We call them our friends. I'm not saying anything else. The Western countries are also here. They say they are our friends. We even have BRICS countries. However, our friends, they have a tendency also to take innovation that is from home and grow it in their own homes and then bring it back to us as consumers. So it's very critical to our leadership as well to look at the issue of commercialization in the fourth industrial revolution. The second aspect of my talk, which is very important to me, South Africa is a key contributor to the 4IR global economy. If I ask you right now and say 4IR, what's the first thing that comes into your mind? Almost everybody will say technology, technology, technology. Blockchain, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, 3D, automation, and technology. However, it is very critical for us to look at the entire value chain to say what is a role of South Africa in this world of technology and convergence of technologies. Yes, technology is very critical. Yes, ICT is very critical because it is the backbone of the fourth industrial revolution. But as Dr. Ross, you always remember, this is always my contention or my bone of contention, even in my work. Before technology, there is production. Because let's be realistic, technology doesn't happen from the air. So before technology, there is production. And before production, there is processing. And before processing, there's raw materials. So before you even go to your blockchain and your artificial intelligence, something must happen or some things must carry that. The value chain of the fourth industrial revolution is something that we have been lacking in terms of talks in the country. I'll give you an example. One of the biggest elements or the biggest pillars of the fourth industrial revolution is energy, sustainable energy. Like the third, the second, and the first, electricity is a critical component of all revolution. However, in the fourth industrial revolution, the energy sustainability is the backbone and the power of this era. So the issue of us having an ESCOM kind of crisis where we have power today and not tomorrow, it can never work if you're going to move forward. It goes back again to say the value chain. Where do we sit as South Africa? There's something called future minerals and smart minerals. And those smart minerals and future minerals, they are what sets us aside as South Africa. Because Prof. Chris and Dr. Sibongiseni, as much as we do invest in skills development and getting these technologies in at home to ensure that we deal with certain issues that we need to deal with using technology, it is equally critical to understand where does our power lie. We know that with Germany are big on precision manufacturing. Japan, they have decided to look at manufacturing of robotics. What is our role as South Africa? What are we giving to the world in terms of the global 4IR era? Our minerals, it goes back to what Chris said. Our land, even today, is our biggest component and our biggest game changer. There are talks also that say, we keep talking about land, but the world has moved forward. Now people are talking about other, no, the truth is our land still gives us that power. There is 3 economies that I want to touch on. One is the knowledge economy, which your Chris's of this world and your Leon of this world and the Sponsen of this world will actually understand, because they are ICT experts. But there's also the issue of resource economy and production economy, which we cannot ignore while we're moving towards the knowledge economy. South Africa, as we sit today, has 2.5 trillion US dollar worth of minerals on the ground, on future minerals. And we have a unique blend of REMs with rare earth minerals and platinum. Are we actually concentrating on those things even as a country? Because while we are building our SMMEs, it is also quite critical to understand that for us to move from the situation that we are in, we need to start creating wealth for ourselves as a country. And our wealth is still under our ground and up on our ground. So the issue of raw materials of the 4th industrial revolution is very, very critical and very important. Through the TYI, which is the 10-year innovation plan, which works a lot with the Department of Science and Technology, there is an intention to move the country towards the knowledge economy altogether. However, Leon, we need to be very careful with that, because while we are moving towards the knowledge economy and ignoring still our resource economy, because the argument says, if you look at our economy right now, our mines and our agriculture is not doing so well. So let's focus on something that will take us and alleviate us. But what the 4th industrial revolution and the technologies that are here now are giving us is an opportunity to use the 4th industrial revolution as an enabler to actually grow those critical traditional industries that we have. Mining, we have the biggest deposit of calcium fluoride, which is used on your automation cars for the lithium battery. The world right now is moving toward battery storage systems. And with the battery storage systems, in every paper and every research that we go through, the southern hemisphere of South Africa has 80% of those minerals, including your manganese, including your nickel, including your cobalt, your REMs, which are rare earth minerals, your graphite, of course, a platinum group, we're still leading there. Those minerals, just a few I'm naming, the international foreign countries are actually eyeing them and ensuring that they are doing what we were in the position 100 years ago that has been done by your Anglo-American and so forth, trying to actually get hold of that. I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, the Australian company got all the rights, or the 80%, 90% rights of lithium mining in Zimbabwe. They own the rights of that mining. This is only 2 years ago. With our wisdom and knowledge, we cannot continue to do that even in this industrial revolution. And I think for me, Leon, especially on the industrialization and commercialization and putting South Africa in a right place, it is very dangerous for us to ignore what is very critical to us and what we have, and try to move to something that is new and hype. And by new and hype, I'm not being negative. The knowledge economy is the future. The digital economy is the future. But while we move towards the digital economy and ICT, we have this land, which still has your future minerals, which hasn't been licensed. And if not careful, will be like Zimbabwe in the next few years. We will hear that there's a company in China which got the licensing of calcium fluoride in South Africa, while we are busy fighting about things that have less impact on us. The issue of battery storage is very much linked to our minerals as well. I'm going to go back to Eskom, and I'm going to say something that maybe most of you don't like hearing. The issue of renewable energy. Unfortunately, the global energy system, as we are speaking now, is currently transitioning to 4IR technologies, from our traditional fossil energy to renewable energies. So we need to also be very vigilant and very clear that we do not politicize things that at the end of the day, they actually harm us. The issue of renewable energy is no longer a negotiable issue. We need to actually enter the renewable energy. Maybe it's the how that we need to actually discuss, to say, if it's the how then do we go back to what Leon said in the beginning, the communism, I think that's what he calls it. How do we ensure that this new era of renewable energy, it doesn't become another monopoly capital for foreign guys or a certain race and leaving us outside? How then do we ensure that even as a government or our government, that your issues of renewable energy are owned by our community at large? The energy balance is very critical, not only to South Africa, but to the world, in the world of the fourth industrial revolution. We are entering the world of smart cities. Another word that many of our South Africans don't like. Is the truth, is the fact. As the world moves, the world is becoming smarter. And one of the reasons, or that drives those things, is the issue of global warming. So it's not whether we like it or not. We have to be smart as a world, and part of us being smart is how do we use and utilize our energy smart. So the issue of energy and the issue of the balance of energy and incorporating the renewable energy in our system is highly, highly critical. As I've indicated earlier on, one of the biggest aspects, Leon, that we need to actually ensure that even our government is on top of, and unfortunately, I still haven't gotten the sense that we are, that 80% plus of our minerals which are underground, I'm in the mining industry, I get calls on daily basis from Russia, from China, from Europe, and other countries, people who are saying, what do we need to do to be part of ownership of IPs of these strategic minerals? 3 years ago, I was in Shanghai attending the Smart City Conference where the entire world was sitting. In one of the meetings, the topic of the meetings was the Southern African Hemisphere on future minerals. If I tell you that in that meeting, there were less than 3 Africans sitting there, and everybody sitting there was talking about us without us not being there. So even the issue of us beyond moving forward in the era of the fourth industrial revolution, we keep screaming and preaching that we cannot find ourselves in the same position that we were in the first, second, and the third revolution, because we were just consumers and spectators of those revolutions. But my fear right now, Professor Chris, is that we are actually doing the very same thing that our ancestors did. Or maybe, to be fair on them, they didn't know better. We know better, Leon, we know better, Dr. Smusen. However, the world, even in this day, is able to sit and plan the fourth industrial revolution and sit and plan the base and the foundation of the fourth industrial revolution, which is the minerals and the future metals that makes the fourth industrial revolution capable. The very same minerals and materials that will be used on our drones or on the global drones. They will be used on your windmills. They will be used on your automation factories. They will be used to make your fast trains. They will be used to actually power your smart cities. 80% of those smart strategic minerals are in South Africa, are in the Southern African Hemisphere. Is our SADC region leadership debating and talking about that? This is just on minerals. I haven't even come yet on the issue of agriculture. Because as we enter the world of cyber system physicals, where human beings are living in harmony with robots, human beings are not reducing in terms of numbers, they are increasing. The human population is increasing. And with the increase of human population, as things stand now, we are struggling to feed human beings. In about 10 years, we'll be more than 10 billion people in the world. Now we're at 7 to 8 billion. As human numbers go up, the land shrinks. It goes back again to what Professor Chris was saying. What is it that we are still blessed with as a country? the amount of vast land that we have. Not all of it is irrable. However, with the use of technology, Dr. Sibongiseni and Dr. Leon, we are able, or the technology enables us to be able to plant and crop smartly, even on areas, cities and provinces where certain commodities cannot be planted. We scream and shout again about the issue of land and politicize it. Yes, it's a political issue. However, we need to put the commercial face on it and put where the world is moving on it, with the increasing number of the human population having to be fed, needing nutrition, and the land decreasing. And South Africa is blessed with so much land. How do we utilize the very same land to ensure that we grow our contribution to the GDP in agriculture? Because that's, for me, is a conversation that needs to be happening. There's too much conversation that we are also having, and there's nothing wrong with that, about the financial sector leading and doing well, and we're having to concentrate on that. Yes, we can do that, but the financial sector also doesn't create much jobs that we need in this country. However, our land is that component that we need to concentrate on, using 4IR as a catalyst to create those jobs as we automate our mines and mine your strategic minerals, keeping those licenses at home. Because it can never be correct again, Leon and Sibongiseni, that we will be entering the phase where these minerals are being mined at a fast and vast rate. However, they are not belonging to the people of this country. Same thing that happens with copper on the third and the second industrial revolution, the second industrial revolution, where we mined the copper as the people of this country, our fathers mining the copper, and then it was exported outside. So there was no benefit for us. There was no wealth creation for us, because the wealth went to London and it went to other countries. We have an opportunity in this country with the fourth industrial revolution to actually shift things. As I've said, it's a silver lining. So as much as it is scary, and we say there's a job loss when it comes to 4IR, our labor is scared, our government does not know what to do. The critical component and the truth is that the fourth industrial revolution is literally a blessing in disguise, but it is a blessing in disguise to a knowledgeable leadership. Because equally, Prof. Edenhoff, we keep talking about smart countries, smart cities, smart industries, and smart everything. To be that smart, you need smart leadership. And right now, I'm questioning the smartness of our leadership, Prof. If only it took us until last year to stand up and realize what is going on in the world, when we knew that we are exiting a certain revolution and entering into the fourth revolution. We knew that about 8 years ago in 2012, and nothing has happened until then. Until our president, His Excellency Ramaphosa, actually said something must happen. This issue of cyber physical system and technology is not a joke. And even the talks of saying we are not ready for the fourth industrial revolution, we must stick to the second and the third. Iyahamba inqola, Leon. We either in it or outside it, and the world will move, and it will move without us. And again, we will find ourselves being consumers, because they will come and take the smart minerals and future minerals, and they will hire their robots and some of us, and we will produce in those mines, and they will take those things outside again, beyond, and process them and give us the HF that we need for electricity, and then hand it to us and consume again. What we are saying is that this opportunity, it doesn't come all the time. It comes once in a lifetime. So the Department of Energy and Minerals is very critical for them to link with the Department of Digital Economies, to link with all strategic departments, even the Department of Skills Development. Because truth of the matter, about 30 to 40% of the jobs that exist today, they won't be there tomorrow. Because the era that we are entering in, it's extraordinary. And I always compare it to the first revolution, When as human beings, we did not know anything about electricity and manufacturing and production. And all of a sudden, there were cars being manufactured when we used to be on horses. And somebody said, no, you can actually use a car. It's faster and more efficient and safer. And I can bet you a big volume of a big chunk of human beings, they couldn't actually comprehend moving from a horse to a car. We are there again in this revolution. When you are saying, we will be working hand in hand with robots as colleagues, how do we tax the robots? Because they are coming and this era is coming. How do we even reskill and reshape our education so that we ensure that our children and the labor that we have currently, they can actually take part in this revolution that is happening? Not even 2 years ago, just last year, we saw the banking sector bleeding of jobs. And Labour wanted to take the banking sector to court. And the argument with the banking sector was that, can we ask you a simple question? When last have you been to your bank? How many of you are using banking through your cell phones and your iPads and your laptops? How then do you expect us as bank to keep all these buildings with nobody in them and hire people where the jobs are no longer there? So it is very critical for us, even as a country, to be honest with ourselves, Leon and Comrade Chris, and Dr. Sibongiseni, to say the world is changing. Are we always going to be reactory when things are happening? Are we always going to react when the jobs in the financial sector have died? Or the mining sector's jobs are being cut down because automation is heavily taking place? Equally understanding that the fourth industrial revolution, it needs for us to compete globally. And for us to compete globally, we cannot compete with German and the Asian and the US and the entire European while they automate, yet we are still left behind. So the issue of even labor in this industrial revolution is very critical, and to sit down and have an honest conversation, Prof. An honest conversation to labor and say, these are the jobs which will be affected. How then do we reskill those jobs and not kill them? But again, I'm going to go back to the type of leadership that unfortunately we found ourselves in today. When other countries, even some African countries, were actually starting to rally even their labors and their people and industries to actually move with the times, we were preoccupied with issues that had nothing to do with our well-being, because we live in a country where we politicize things that sometimes we need not politicize. So the issue of us saying, yes, we've entered the fourth industrial revolution, but also equally, Comrade Leon, I'm sorry to say Comrade, Dr. Leon, rapid economic recovery, it has been forced on us by COVID-19. As terrible and as mastery this virus is, it's opening our eyes and it's actually giving us a space to close rank and start doing things on our own in this country. Simple thing like masks. I'm a mask, Epswain. Your N95 medical mask. The country is struggling because we don't have enough production of those. We have to wait for China to come and bring a mask, a simple mask. So as Leon said earlier, if this COVID-19 has to really close in and we cannot take anything from outside, as a country, we are screwed because we consume everything. And we consume everything because we do not invest in what we have. And we allow the outside world to take what we have, go do what they need with it, and then give it to us to consume. As I've said, in this generation, Dr. Ross, Prof. Ehrenhoff, Dr. Tudzejana, we will be committing a crime to our children if we find ourselves in the same space in the next 10 years. So as the government says, what do we do for a recovery after COVID-19? The question should say, what do we have as a country that we can utilize to create our own wealth and money so that we can start building our own economy and SMMEs? Argument again, South Africa is broke and South Africa is poor. This is what everybody is saying. And yes, maybe to some extent, we do not have the money because of improper certain things that happened. However, I've mentioned something very critical. The world, the entire world, China, USA, Europe, Asia, the entire world is looking and zooming its eye on the Southern African hemisphere future minerals, which they haven't gotten hold of them yet. Isn't it time, as South Africa and as Africa as a whole, we hold those things on our own? Because we have expertise in mining, especially in South Africa. We are one of the leading mining countries. How then do we not take technology and utilize that and ensure that we actually grow and revitalize and re-industrialize our mining sector? Same thing on agriculture. Revitalize our agricultural sector. Even on production, produce with a purpose. Even when government invest in SMEs, invest with a purpose. I'm, for one, exhausted of hearing that our government has 2 billion rand that is set aside for SMEs. And then when you go and ask that, what exactly is that money or those SMEs should be doing? It can be catering, it can be anything. We need to start producing with a purpose and producing to our strength. And our strength, it's still our land to this day. So the issue of land, I don't even want to politicize it. I'm not going to put a color on it. I'm just going to put it as a patriotic and a national issue that we need to look at. We have the land that is rich on the bottom and that is powerful on top. The simple, and maybe we need to stop trying to be all intelligent as much as we are intelligent. Try to be as simplistic as possible. Dr. Ross, Prof, and Dr. Sibongiseni, I've mentioned even this last year. This country must decide who it is. We can't be everything to everyone. Countries that lead, they lead because they are specifically concentrated on what they are good at. I'm sorry to say. As South Africa, with everything that I've said, our job is simply to power the world through our minerals and our metals. And our job is to feed the world through the vast land and the population that is growing. How then do we utilize those technologies in those industries? And this doesn't even move other industries aside. Everything is important, but I'm saying we need to be specific as a South Africa and be able to identify our strength and play on our strength. Last year, we had a trade war between USA and China. President Trump and President Jinping fighting over the physical and the software of Apple stores or something like that. The question that you will think as South African, we need to question ourselves, because this is where now the world powers are going. With China and USA fighting this war, one underlying thing is there is no Apple without the Southern African hemisphere minerals and metals. And we are not playing to that power. There's so much to learn from the president of Rwanda, the man who have learned to play on his power. Because sometimes we really don't need to have or be friendly with everybody or be nice to everybody. Our mandate is to be patriotic to South Africans. And if that means we lock certain strategic components in this country to ensure that we build wealth for this country, we reskill our kids to assist us build wealth in our strategic industries in this country. We need to learn to be patriotic even from the leadership of this country. Because as I've said right now, one of the anxiety I have, Dr. Leon, is that I'm gonna wake up and I would know one day that somebody, some company somewhere in China or in Russia or in Australia or in the USA, it owns 80% of calcium fluoride in South Africa, or it owns 80% of manganese in South Africa, or it owns 100% of rams in South Africa. And then we are back again to square one. So with that said, it is very critical for us to actually embrace the fourth industrial revolution, but equally understanding that the backbone of the fourth industrial revolution, it is driven by you guys on the ICT. Because literally it is the ICT industry that has actually birthed this opportunity for us again. So while we concentrate on the industries and commodities and sectors that are of our benefit, we equally grow our ICT. So the issue of hybrid economy is very critical. And when I'm saying hybrid, I'm talking about we move towards the knowledge economy, which is ITC and technology based, and the resource economy, which is agriculture and mining, which we are strong at, and we've been blessed with that. So those two, for me, are very critical as a hybrid. And then with those two comes the supporting or the other strengthening of manufacturing and processing and production and chemicals. Because once we get aligning all our mining commodities, it is easy for us to now process them ourselves, manufacture and produce, and for a change, move in a different direction as South Africa, a direction where we are able to sit on the table. We know better now. We have to do better. I cannot emphasize this enough. Dr. Leon Ross, Professor Chris Edenhoff, Dr. Sibongiseni Totsejane, if we are here again in 10 years' time, it's me and you who have committed crimes to our kids. It's not apartheid. It's me and you. If me and you are here in the next 10 to 20 years, it is me and you who have committed a crime to our children. It is me and you who have made our children stay in poverty. And before I close off, the issue of leadership in this country is critical. We need to also start putting leaders in this country who are going to move us forward. Because there is a need for knowledge-based leadership, because we keep missing very critical things because our leadership are not knowledge-based. And with due respect to our political system, which I don't want to entertain, I'm now talking about the leadership that will lead this country into prosperity. The leadership that is able to sit at the World Economic Forum and not eat and drink and say nothing, that will be able to actually illustrate that as South Africa, as the Southern Africa and the SADC region, this is what we have and these are our terms. Because our leaders are not doing that. And that's why it's us who suffer in the ground. It is our children, our nieces and our nephews. Leon said something very critical and quite painful earlier on. Me and you today are having this meeting because I have Wi-Fi, I have my iPad, I have my laptops. My cousin and my nieces are somewhere in the rural and in the township. They are struggling to even buy a data 5 rand in 2020. So even the issue of us moving forward to a prosperous South Africa in the fourth industrial revolution, in a smart country, the issue of the type of leadership we put in, it's critical. Thank you very much.
That is it.
No, thank you very much, Ms. Mkonza. Your presentation was indeed thought-provoking. Very positive responses coming from all three our platforms. I think now you've brought it, you've brought it home. You've brought home what things we should be focusing on. You've made it much more practical in terms of where we should go. I've now checked the three platforms that we are on, and there's a few questions on issues of the mineral resources that you alluded to. I think I just want to pose those two questions while you're still on the floor.
I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Ooh,
Can you hear me now, Ms. Mkwanza? Okay, no, that's fine. We will engage you offline and then provide answers to the questions on the chats, on the various chats, Facebook, YouTube, as well as Zoom, after the presentation, because I do see we'll have connectivity challenges. But thank you very much for that. I have noted all the comments and the questions on the chats. There's also praises of the presentation was very good. The passion that protecting what is ours is reiterated throughout all the platforms. That many of our viewers agree with you that it's time that our country be practical in everything we do, and that we need to focus on two areas: our trade deals and corruption. We must start where we are, not where we should be. There's also comments coming from YouTube that Sis Lindiwe is on point, and we need leaders that are able to negotiate for the country, wealth of the country, people of the country, and this is high time that the government needs to listen. So thank you very much for inputs from the viewers on all three platforms. We appreciate it very much. We are now going to get ready for our final speaker. I just want to do a quick introduction. For those viewers who have just recently joined us, we are speaking about the 4IR response to rapid economy recovery and capacity building. It is a PBICT initiative with the intention to provide support and information in this COVID-19 time. We have welcomed 4 industry experts, 3 of which have already presented. So we are going to conclude with our final speaker, Dr. Sibongiseni Totsejani. She will speak on the impact and effect of growing and commercializing homegrown IP and technologies that can take South Africa to the top of the list on the 4IR agenda. Thank you, Dr. Sibs. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gents.
Afternoon, doctor. How are you?
I'm grateful, thanks, and you?
Good, thanks. We last saw you in Cape Town. Welcome back, doctor.
Thank you so much, Chair Lady.
Pleasure, pleasure.
Are we all seeing my presentation?
Yes, we are. It's a blank white screen.
Okay. It's not supposed to be a blank white screen.
Yes, we see it now. It's.
Thank you. Can we see, we on presentation mode?
We can see it. Yes, we can see it. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gents. This is Simply Sibs speaking, and I'm so grateful and honored to be part of this movement. hosted by the Progressive Blacks in Information and Communication Technologies. I'm a member as well. So my topic is about unlocking opportunities for SMMEs in this 4IR era. So a little bit about us. We are a startup called Flavor Light Innovations Global, and we are passionate about consciousness and conscious technology for humanity. I ran the startup with Ms. Unathi Totsejane, and that's a picture of us being part of the Presidential Commission in 4IR, and also some of the things that we've been working on. Before I go any further, I'll just play a little video just to contextualize.
Hello, I am Sibongiseni Tunzelana Totsejane. The name of our company is FLI Global. What we do in our company, we offer the fourth industrial revolution services and products, starting with the ICT infrastructure and also creating our own proudly South African tools to measure and monitor the social impact done in our rural areas and townships. The problem that we've identified is that as people, corporates, individuals, and also governments are coming to our townships and rural areas, we are struggling to coordinate all the positive impact that is being done in our communities. The solution as a company that we've come up with, we've created and developed a social impact assessor tool and platform in order to measure and monitor the progress that's being done in our rural areas and townships. We've done this by using artificial intelligence and also forecasting methodologies in order to know which priority areas the investors and people wanting to invest in our organizations to start with. We've used also stats from Statistics South Africa in order to overlay the forecasting and the predictive analytics. We generate revenue by selling our SIA application and corporates who are keen on adding value in townships and rural areas. Thank you.
Dr. Sif, the presentation is not playing.
Can you see the videos?
The video is not playing. It's still stuck on
Can you see the videos?
No, it's still stuck on the initial page that you showed us.
So you're not moving along with me with my
No.
presentation?
No, we're
I'm
not.
on a
It's
slide.
just-
Can you see now?
No, we can't. It's still stuck on the first page that you showed us.
And now?
It's just the first page that you showed. As your
Okay,
voice
let me
comes
stop
on, it doesn't
sharing
move.
and then reshare again.
Okay.
And now?
Yes, we are back on the first page. I think when your voice starts, it's a video, so we need to move along with the video. Someone on the chat is saying that you share content and then you say select screen with video option.
I did.
Yeah, I'm sure it will play now. Let's try it again, Doctor.
Mm. I'm sharing. There we go. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it, Doctor. We see the first page again.
Okay. Let me try and.
Doctor, while you're sorting out your video, there's a comment on YouTube about influencing government to take actions, and I think about the commission's work. But as you said, we're not going to go into that today, but I did advise the viewers that we will try and individually deal with their questions due to time issues. So I think when you're addressing issues of that, you can perhaps also allude to issues like that. I think it's now because you mentioned it.
Sorry, I just went complete.
I also have another comment on Facebook that the wish is that the presentations could reach the presidency and that it could pave the way forward. So a lot of positive responses coming from the viewers on the first three presentations. Dr. Sibongiseni, are we winning?
I completely closed my presentation now. Let me just get back to it again. Otherwise, I could just talk to it if all else fails.
Yes. Yeah, I'm thinking,
If I may, maybe ask
Yes,
the
Prof.
doctor, to share the slides with you, then you can actually load it up.
Yes, that could also work. I think it's a video, Prof. Chris,
Yeah, I think the video poses a little bit of a problem. So
Yeah.
I would go to the third slide. If that doesn't work, maybe ask the doc to you can actually share her screen and then
Yes.
you can actually upload it. I think that might work better.
Dr. Sibongiseni, will that work if you send it to me and I upload it?
Let me just try and get back to it again, and then I think it's going to take a while to send it. It's a huge file. There's a lot of graphics.
I think that could be. It says your
Even the
bandwidth is a bit
presentation
low.
is graphic heavy.
Mm.
So it may just take a while. And also, yeah, so let me just open it again and then try to just go through the slides without even skipping the videos though. I'll just talk to them, what they
Okay.
symbolize. Yeah. Okay, I'm back again. Got it.
Okay. No, thank you very much.
There we go. Yeah, it's just the graphics that are taking a bit to load, and some of them are custom made by our team. Some are, that's why they're taking a bit to load.
Are you able to start introducing them while we wait for them to load? Otherwise, there's complete silence on all the platforms.
Okay, so maybe what I can just start sharing on while I'm trying to wait for the presentation to load is just how we've defined the fourth industrial revolution as a commission, where we see it as an era. It's like a time in space and time where it's an era where it's happening whether we are ready or not. It's not just about technologies, it's a fusion and a convergence of the cyber world, the physical world, and the biological world, which is currently taking place and has been taking place. And also with the fourth industrial revolution comes then some applications thereof, and comes opportunities for us to say, what can we then use the fourth industrial revolution applications in order to contextualize for our South African context? So we find ourselves in South Africa where we are in an era where we have the National Development Plan 2030, and then also we have the Constitution. And then in South Africa, we also have the Batupili principles within the sphere of ICT, which means that as we are in the ICT sphere and in the ICT world, we need to develop and design and create and produce whatever ICT applications for the people, by the people, which is then becomes the overarching manner in which as ICT task forces across the country in various sectors, we have to put the person and the human in the center of our delivery. So whatever we deliver, is it then useful for the end user? And who are the people developing and designing that particular solution. So then the question becomes, are we human-centric in our approach in dealing with the 4IR as a country? And are we then approaching 4IR in this human-centered way? So at the center of all this era and revolution, have we considered being human-centric? So that's the premise from which we move as a commission, and that's the premise in which we contextualize what we're trying to do. Knowing that our country is plagued with high numbers of youth unemployment, with poverty, and also we've inherited a past where the inequality and being marginalized is quite rife than other countries. So how do we then respond with 4IR to deal with our triple issues of inequality, poverty, and high youth employment, using this era to make sure that those are the issues that we address in the manner in which we conduct work, in the manner in which we are in organizations, in the manner in which as SMMEs are dealing with. Therefore, it means then whatever outcome or solution or ICT answers that we come with must deal and be conscious of these issues that are quietly, clearly illustrated in the National Development Plan. So that's the background and the socio-economic drivers of the 4IR in South Africa. Unlike other countries who are driven by innovation, we are driven by need, and we are driven by context, and we are driven by the things that impact us the most, which we are experiencing currently, and they're still persistent. So in the persistency of youth unemployment, inequality, and poverty, then the solution and the proposals that we bring to the table need to address these for our context. So it becomes important for us to know that we are in South Africa. We cannot go around the world to find solutions that are suitable for other countries without contextualizing those learnings and also those 4IR applications that they are doing. So knowing and being conscious of who we are then becomes really important. Let me just try again. No, I can't take anymore. I think I'll just continue. And then, so how do we then deal with the issue of knowing who we are as a country? So we know that we are quite a diverse country, and also in our diversity, we've learned that we have 11 official languages. We come from different tribes and we come from different origins. And then in us knowing the strengths of each culture, of each tribe, of each kind of diversity that we share and we appreciate as a country, then it means that there's a reason why we were born in that culture, we are born in that tribe, we are born in the context in which we were born in. For example, take it from me, I was born and raised in a rural area called Mkhangiso, and I can speak Sesotho and isiXhosa. There's a reason why then I find myself in that culture, in that context. The people from which I come from are quite skilled in creating beadwork, in creating music, in creating arts. So the whole culture and the notion of Steamie is hashtag Steamie. The S is for science, and then the T for technology, the E for engineering, the A is for arts. You find that a lot of African people, a lot of South African people are quite skilled and gifted in the area of arts. Then we have to highlight the A of the Steamie, and then the mathematics, and then the I is for innovation. In the sphere and the context in which we find ourselves in, there's an opportunity for us to be innovative. And then the E of the Steamie is entrepreneurship. So where we can take what we've created and produced as that particular sector or field and package it in such a way that there's commercial value in what we've created and what we've produced. So if of the Steamie is entrepreneurship, so how do we then include the entire hashtag Steamie movement in our day-to-day lives as South Africans? So my idea in my area speaks to data. The area of data is quite a topical area at the moment in ICT and in the world. Data can be viewed and can be defined as various things. It could be voice, it could be video, it could be text, it could be bits, it could be bytes, it could be information. Data has become various in its formation. It's structured, it's unstructured, but every single bit or every single context of data, we have to understand that it has become an asset now in the country. It has become an asset to individuals. It has become an asset to organizations. So then it's important for us to then value our data, our personal data, our SMME data, our organizational data, and know how to classify data. So you have data that's confidential and that's private, and then you have data then that's public, which is open shared data, which is shareable with whoever you choose to share it with. And then you've got data then that people need confidentiality and integrity rules around it. And also with your own data, you need to know how you actually access your data when you need it. You have to know how to pull it from the places from which you've stored it and have it accessible so that you can start making use of the data in manners in which they can serve you as a person and you as an SMME. And if you are in corporate, you can then have to find ways to use that data to make it usable for the organization in which you find yourself. So data in 2020 has become so valuable and so precious. They even claim that more precious than gold, because with the data that you have, you can start now making decisions on the fly, and you can start making wiser decisions on the fly. And also you can see the information and the data that you have as an SMME. How do you actually make sure that you create another income stream using the data that you already have in your company and in your organization? But if that data now is not valued, is not stored in a way where it can start bringing value to your organization, then it becomes a challenge. So my advice and my sharing is that as SMMEs, it's important that our information, our data, and our assets, the data asset, is actually backed up, it's actually archived, and also you have versions of it, at least 5 types of them, so that if anything could happen that's unbecoming or unprecedented, you have backups, you have archives in secure online cloud environments and also offsite servers that in other areas. So this is what is called the hybrid methodology of making sure that data is preserved and data is stored in the cloud and in physical servers that are in different premise than you have your small, medium enterprise. Now, as SMMEs, you will know that sometimes we wing things and we learn as we go. So as we're learning as we're going, and also as we're finding information in how to run our SMMEs and how to know which areas of our business to start to capitalize on, how do we actually start from a place where it's accessible for us as SMEs to derive value from our data? Okay, it seems as if I can be back on again. Let me see if I can find a way to reshare with us all.
Doctor, I must just ask the host, who's our General Secretary, he must unshare his screen because we put your picture up for the stream. And then once he unshares, you can then come back on and share.
Okay.
Let me just tell him to do so.
Yeah, so I want to just give like the SMMEs some tips and tricks on how to just, with the little resources that we have and limited resources, how could we start today applying some principles when it comes to data in order for us as SMMEs to mine some opportunities from the data that we have as organizations?
Okay, Doctor, you can share your screen.
Okay. Okay. Can you guys see it?
Yes, we see it.
Is it the one with the real world problems?
Yeah, with a collage of pictures.
Mm-mm.
While we're on that, Doctor, there's a.
Okay.
Are you managing? I wanted to read a comment while we're busy loading.
Mhm. Mm-mm. Oh.
There's a viewer of ours on Zoom that has posted in the chat that they like the point of departure. The reality of the matter is that we cannot imagine this far out without realizing current societal changes. So indeed, looking into the triple challenges that are facing our country and the societies in general becomes paramount. That's the one comment coming through from the Zoom chats, Doctor. So it looks like as much as we are struggling to load, I think the viewers are understanding the first areas that you mentioned.
Okay, so for SMMEs, because we are usually so cash strapped and most of us from rural areas and the townships and marginalized communities, we hardly have capital. So how do we then start developing a human-centric and an Afrocentric 4IR strategy for our SMMEs? And also how do we then develop a lifelong learning culture as SMMEs? So my starting point, I have a diagram that I've created that maybe we can share the presentations to everyone afterwards, where you start with a real world problem. So if there's a real world problem in your community, for example, in the community where I come from, there's a real world challenge of we've got artists, they speak in indigenous languages, and they also are developing and creating beadwork, and they are in the Eastern Cape in marginalized areas. That's our context, and that's where we find ourselves in. How do we then make sure that we are communal in the way in which we work. So first and foremost, we start collaborating. You have artists, you have technologists, you've got community workers, you've got nonprofit corporations working together in areas, trying to understand the challenges in our own area and finding ways to work together from all classes of society. Then the second thing that we've done is what did we have at our disposal? What did we have as a starting point without much capital? And then start using the resources we have in our disposal. One of the things that we're very strong in is that we had people who could sing and we had people who could use traditionally made instruments like harps, and people who can then take those traditionally made instruments in creating digitized beats and sounds. And you have your computer scientists who are students, you have your community workers, and then you have your 4IR specialists who can then merge and infuse all those components into an AI application and start then creating visual music videos that we can put on blockchain. So what we've done then in our projects, we've created music videos that are placed on blockchain. We've created MP3s, audio songs, and put them on blockchain where you have a known artist collaborating with an unknown artist so that they can create a song and a music video in their own mother tongue. So it means then we have cultural pride, and we've got that cultural pride, and that's what we have at our disposal, and then we commercialize that. So we take all these songs from these various artists, and then we start streaming them and selling them on blockchain platform. All of a sudden you have an artist from a marginalized community and they have a music video and a portfolio that they can use to start raising capital for the music project, and yet they can have royalties with immediate effect. So what happens is with that data, those songs, those beats, that music we actually registered it at Samro and at Riza. Then you have artists owning their own music, owning their own IP, and start making money out of what they can create. So during the journey of a music video, you find that you need wardrobe, you need innovation, you need beats. If you are having a traditional and indigenous knowledge systems within your song, then you would have the likes of beadworks and traditional costumes that are modernized. Then you have multi-award winning designers who've been to Milan, who've been to international fashion shows, working with our rural and township designers, transferring skills and learning from one another. So you have a context where there's a lot of learning from each other and leveraging from every single type of skill set that is existing. Now, the people in the various communities get to learn how to register their own business, even if you're a sole proprietor, even if you are a closed corporation, even if you're a PTY LTD, that learning on how to register something that belongs to you and that you can own, that you can leverage. And then you grow and you find yourself in a community of working together. And then from there, from a community of working together, you get to learn how to save. You can save as little as the amount that you are making. One of the things that we did in the project is we've created a platform, an e-commerce platform that says from the rural areas or from our townships to the world. And then we had partnered with our mentors and our mentoring companies and some nonprofit companies where the beadwork, the fashion, and all the things that we've created and we own, our indigenous knowledge systems are start being recognized and start being experienced by other countries. But then we started with what we had. So what my nonprofit corporation called Lovolution, which is a merger of love and revolution, is done. We then got to buy the stock for the people so that they can then, from the raw materials that they needed to create the artistic work, they can then leverage from there. An example is those beaded safety pin bracelets that you guys usually see that the tourists like to buy and they like to share. Those beaded bracelets, you would find that people are selling them for 500 Rand, but they would buy them for 50 Rand from our traders. Why then shouldn't we bridge a 4IR platform or an e-commerce platform from those people themselves directly to the world, so that there's no middleman who then interferes with the profit of our people and also from what they can earn from. And also with the royalties of the artists, it's a longer route and it's very tough to actually take the route, because some of the young people, they just want to be rich and famous. But then you start conscientizing the people and also the young artists to say, rather own your own catalog, where you get your royalties within 24 hours of streaming an X amount of value of that content that you own. And also with that content, when you start beginning to own it and it's sitting on a blockchain platform, you can actually start being your own publicist. So you can take your own song and now feature it in commercials. You can start taking this own song that you've registered and you've put your IP with Risa and with Samro, and you can start putting your own music with our own indigenous languages in movies, and then you can start commercializing your own content and IP. It's a slow and long journey, but that's what our people in our communities have. They've got indigenous knowledge systems, and yet we're not aware, we're not reaching out, we're not doing enough for them to commercialize on the A of the Steamie and the I and the E, which is the arts, the innovation, and the entrepreneurship. And then from there, now the community grows, because also we also have the what we call in our context stokvel, and we call it in savings and investments together as a community. So if you start now putting those savings and investments as a collective on certain platforms like blockchain, people can actually have smart digital contracts that cannot be exploited, that people cannot really try and hack, because then the smart contracts and the digital currency and the smart digital transparent technologies on blockchain, everyone can monitor and see the change. There's transparency in the way people are saving and investing. And all of a sudden you can start having cooperative banks. You can start having co-op banks within the communities, the rural areas, the townships in which we find ourselves in. As we know, there are very limited and there are few banking licenses that are offered by the South African Reserve Bank. But if people start taking power and ownership into their own hands of starting with your own money, with your own indigenous knowledge system, with what you can preserve and commercialize, and do that as small little communities, as a collective, working as collectives and collaborations, then there's so much value that we can yield in what we can produce. And also we can see where the need is, and based on the person fair value exchange, people can start commercializing from the areas of their strength without putting down each person's strengths. All of a sudden now, music and art is no longer looked down upon as if it's not as special as science, as technology, as mathematics, because now there's inclusion in how we trade and in how SMMEs can start commercializing as packs. You find that also the strength in packs and also seeing ourselves as a unit and as collectives. You find that African people, they lack the whole notion of being a collective. So now with these projects that are community-based and that are not leaving anyone behind, you start seeing who now is falling short. Do people have access? Can people see how the e-commerce platform is doing? Can they see their sales? Can they see who are the people who are buying their beads coming from? You start putting in a layer of analytics. So there are a number of analytics tools that our people can start monitoring without really having to be technical. So some of the tools nowadays are very easy to use. Then people start seeing that their beads and their music is being streamed in so many countries, and they can start seeing the amount of money that they are making in real time on these blockchain platforms. And then they start seeing the value and the amount that they can make. It may be small, but it becomes incremental over time because it's what you own, it's what you've produced, and it's what you've created. So in this season of lockdown and we are away, I think it's an opportune time again to reflect, to assess and reassess what do we have at our disposal? What are our areas of strength? How can we take what we have to create content, to create assets, data assets, and also make sure that those data assets, you have backups of them and they are secure. You can actually access them when you need to, and they are stored with the highest level of integrity. And also you separate what's confidential and what's public. And then as an SMME, when you have all that data known and reviewed and analyzed using a number of tools, then you can start seeing, when I am commercializing in one income stream, how can I use this data that I have to see the need of what the people who are looking and listening to me and my target market is asking for? You can see that then there's another income stream, another source of service that you can create and produce based on the feedback that you get from your various target markets that you serve in what you're trying to do. So depending on the sector that you're in and depending on what you're trying to produce and trying to create, what I'm really highlighting is a applied method of solving a contextual challenge. As you are solving it, document and also step by step all those findings. It's your own IP, it's your own intellectual property, it's your own way of doing what you do in a smart way, and then find a better way to improve on it and iterate on it so that you can commercialize better. You can do that in an automated fashion the next time. And then after you've done that, then find other tribes who are doing similar things or who in the same sector as you, or even a different sector, but you're trying to service the same target market and work together with those people. So I think in my closing, what I would want to encourage is that no industry is less important than the other industry. So the issue of indigenous knowledge systems become key. The issue of 4IR, everybody can participate in one form or the other, it's feasible. As long as we've got access, as long as every single person has access to connectivity, and as long as people are conscious of using homegrown, traditional South African created solutions, it becomes important because if we then don't support our local SMMEs and we don't support the people who understand the context, then we have our own selves to blame, because charity begins at home. You start growing your own timber. One of the things that I was going to encourage us on when it was on the slides is the use of massive online open communities and courses called the MOOCs, where you can actually teach yourself skills on how to do things. And also you can teach yourself how to solve a particular problem from the MOOCs. So if we don't know, nobody knows everything at the same time. So as you are solving that contextual problem, you have the MOOCs that are open 24/7, where you can tap on those, and most of them are certified. You can get certifications with universities or colleges that have used the MOOCs if you want the certification or the qualification. I know in South Africa, VETS, for example, has some ICT courses that if you've taught yourself in the MOOCs, then VETS can help you get certification. So there are those universities that recognize the importance of when you've taught yourself, you just go write an examination, or they use a method called recognition of prior learning, where you've applied that method so that you can then get that 4IR skill that you taught yourself. So you're not going to get 4IR experts. So it may just be that we are the 4IR experts that we are waiting for. You teach yourself one 4IR application or implementation as you go along, and you take that and you implement it and solve a business challenge or business context or a challenge that your client may have using MOOCs, using another mentor company that's done the same thing. So you learn, it's called just-in-time learning, just in on-the-job training. That's how you learn 4IR. So there isn't that one expert that knows everything about 4IR in the world, but you will teach yourself an aspect of the fourth industrial revolution technologies to solve a persistent problem that you find in your context and use that learning for your next learning. So I think, in closing is that when we find ourselves in these contexts and environments, let's not forget where we come from. Let's not forget the richness of our indigenous knowledge systems, and also how we can move along as packs, and the principles of Ubuntu and principles of Butu, that in this world we didn't come alone. We come from a community, we come from a rural area, we come from a township. Wherever we come from, when we've made it, we must go back and see how we can add value where we come from. So one person is asking the spelling of MOOCs, it's MOOC. It's a massive open online courses. That's what it stands for. So I think it's time that in this lockdown, we empower ourselves. Let's not lose sight of investing in ourselves. We are lifelong learners as Africans, and each one teach one as we rise, as we find ourselves in positions. Let's not rise alone. Let's rise together. Let's rise. Each one as we rise with one another. Thank you very much. I'm just saying this at the top of my head because my presentation picked up a long time ago.
No, thank you very much, Dr. Subs. We appreciate it. Always a pleasure to have you. I'm getting a lot of comments about how you've just literally simplified this big, giant 4IR, and you've literally brought it back down to the people on the ground. There's comments about collaborations, unlocking benefits. That's great work indeed. Blockchain technology, there's a lot of support for that sentiment for music collaboration, that it's a game changer. There's a comment about that it's important to take 4IR to the rural area and simplify it in a manner that makes sense to the man on the ground. There's a comment about blockchain has huge potential for ICT specialists in South Africa. It's a big money spinner, and the Chinese are capitalizing on this. There's comments about the great work that you have shared, and that it's a very interesting concept about how townships, spaza shops use technology in enhancing their business opportunities. So I must say, the feeling that I'm getting from the viewers is that you've come and literally just concluded with practical solutions about how we can bring this technology to the man on the ground who really can benefit from it. It is on this note that I have to thank all the guests and the experts that have joined us and the viewers. And I will give over to our PBICT president, Dr. Leon Rose, who will be closing this session. Thank you very much.
Chairperson, to my esteemed colleagues, my brother, Professor Chris Ndabezita, Lindiwe, and DJ Love Resolution of Revolution, Simply Sibs. I want to say thank you very much for being unselfish and sharing this information with the public, with South Africa, this much needed information as we're sitting at home and doing absolutely nothing. You have given us something to think. You have given us something to talk about. You've given us something to do. And all the recommendations and resolutions have been drafted, and we will be sending them to the relevant departments and to the relevant stakeholders. I want to say to all the viewers for being here from 2 o'clock, and some of you from 2:30. Thank you very much for tolerating and for being part of this. We will be having a lot more sessions after this. We are actually planning to have master classes, because after every workshop we do master classes. So we've identified quite a few master classes that we will be communicating to you shortly, and where you will be having actually one-on-one and having more time, spending more time with these experts that we've brought here today. And I want to also say that we also still have another arsenal of such quality speakers that we will be bringing to the fort and will be presenting in the master classes. I'll urge you that we join this, because like I said, that the time for talking, I think, is too much. We've had 20 odd years for us to talk. Our government has done a lot over the last 20 years in terms of achieving and trying to improve the service delivery levels and trying to address our socioeconomic divides. It is our time and it is our turn to take the baton and to stand up, roll up our sleeves, and say to the government that we are here to assist. PBICT, with the alliance of SABISPA, with the alliance of Youth Economic Alliance, we have said that we are doing this thing. We have people that are building networks as we speak. We have people that are developing programs. We have people that are playing with robotics. We have people that are developing new business models. We have people that are doing a lot of things. This platform and making this a reality and allowing people to stream through Zoom, through Facebook and YouTube was done and made possible by one of our SMMEs that is actually running the content side of things. And this is our our Secretary General, Dennis Rawls. For that technical support, I want to say thank you very much. To the team that is specializing on the streaming and these webinars, Comrade Africa, Comrade Ndumiso, Comrade Steve, I want to thank you very much for giving this power to our people. The people that are online, I see some of our members as far as even to Dubai. I see Johannesburg. I see we've got Cape Town in the house, all the provinces. Thank you very much for being in here. And to the other special guests that we have invited that have been with us and listening, and our implementing agents, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Mbulelo, BBI, Patang, thank you very much, guys. We highly appreciate it. Let's keep ourselves on the website. We will be sharing a lot of information through there, through our emails. May I urge everyone here to register as a member of PBICT so that when we distribute presentations on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, you can receive the copies of the presentations, and it will also make it easy for us to communicate with you on all the other programs that we will be having. Communitism is the way to go. Let us build these tribes and let us change where we are. Professor Chris, we've taken the cue that our land, our air, our water is our wealth. And we will definitely make use of that, Ndabezitha, like you've said, in terms of commercialization and making sure that we guard it jealously and make sure and that it benefits our people. DJ Simply Subs, thank you very much. The blockchain, the big data analytics, the big data processing, our culture, our content. We teach people what our way. We do science the way we've always done science. We were the first in this era, like Ndabezitha, you've said, to start with innovation, and we will be definitely going back and tapping back to all of those things. One of the things of an ism is that you tap into lost cultures and you use them today. To all of you, thank you very much, Chairperson, for a beautifully coordinated program. I say thank you and keep safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us.